Welcome to AudioNovel. For more captivating stories, visit my Patreon page.
Madara in the Avatar World. Chapter 1, A Voice in the Dark. In a complete pitch-black environment, a small silhouette made of light, in the shape of a grown man, remains sitting in lotus position, seemingly floating. He doesn't remember how he got here. His last memories were of him on his own house, a shitty place to be honest. Well, it's not like anything in his life ever worked out. It felt like the world wanted to screw him over in everything he tried. After years of trying, he gave up on improving and dedicated his life to surviving. And so, he went like that for nearly 30 years, until suddenly he woke up on this place. Where the hell is this place? I have been here for what it felt like months, years, and nothing happens. It feels like a dream, but when we're dreaming, the last thing we think is that we are, well, dreaming. It's so odd. He waited and waited, his sanity slowly crumbling until he heard voices, not one, not two, but several, almost talking at the same time, the exact same words. In his head it felt like it was the voice of the world communicating with him. We finally meet. Welcome to the abyss of nothing, my young anomaly. Looking around and finding nothing but pure darkness, he just gives up on trying to understand the situation. Well, at least I have the voices in my head to talk to now. I won't be as lonely anymore. After a brief period of silence, a small chuckle echoed through the darkness. Well, it seems I made you wait a bit, young anomaly. Why don't we have a chat? I can assure you that I am no voice in your head. Shrugging and knowing that he is complete powerless and exhausted after who knows how long of waiting, all he wanted to do is get it over with. Is he dead? Alive? Drugged? At this point, after who knows how long, he simply doesn't care anymore. Very well. Voice. Let's talk. How are you today? Do you hang around these parts very often? He asked back with a chuckle. If he is dead, at least he is going out with some dignity, even if it's just a shitty lame joke. Yes, actually, I hang around here all the time, for a very, very long time. How about you? Do you often hang around here? He chuckles and answers, well, for the past God knows how long. So yeah. I've been hanging around here for quite a bit. You are right, I know exactly how long you have been here. I would say 1,233 days. I could say the exact hours, minutes, and seconds, but considering the number of days, would a few hours actually matter? He laughs out loud, ha 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 ha, so you are telling me that you are God? He shakes his head, you sounds more like a ROB than the God. Oh. Why do you think so? The God wouldn't have to ask that question, the God would already know the answer. If his face had anything other than light, he would have been grinning at this point. Touché, my young anomaly, touché. He shrugs and asks, what's up with that whole young anomaly thing? Is that how you call dead people? Why do you think you are dead? Don't change the subject. After making me wait for 1,233 days, you could at least answer a question. And to answer you, would we meet in a place like this if I was alive? A fair point. Well, to tell you the truth, you are not dead. Your soul was brought here, but you are not dead. In fact, your soul is not even an actual soul, it's more like an artificial soul created by an anomaly. The reason why you suffered your whole life was because of your artificial soul. You see, your world rejects you, and because of it, its will is bent to go against you. The fact that you survived almost 30 years is actually quite impressive. He was obviously quite shocked by the revelation, but it didn't take much for him to accept it as truth. That explains a lot, and raises even more questions. Well, you are not the first and certainly not the last. It's uncommon but not considered rare. Most humans like that die when they're still inside their mother's wombs. The percentage that survives usually dies on their early years, below 5 years old, but you, my young anomaly, survived 30 years, that's some impressive feat. If he had an eyebrow, he would have raised it. Is that so? So, what I am here for? A prize. Another chuckle echoes through the void. Yes, actually is more like an opportunity. An artificial soul is quite unique in many ways. Yes, it is deadly, but it also presents you with a unique feature. You can travel to other world through transmigration, while natural souls can only be reincarnated there. The difference is on the details. So you are going to ice-guy me? You know, I really hate that word. Recently, many souls coming from your universe have been asking me that when they meet me for their afterlife guidance. It got really annoying. So, what happened to them? What else? Reincarnation cycle, hell or heaven or purgatory, it all depends. I won't explain to you how the afterlife system works, to be honest you have no right to know how it works, you are just a mortal. Fair point. So, what now? We would like to employ you for a job. By accepting this job we will tinker your soul so you won't have to deal with the whole world turning against you, ever again, among other perks. After a brief silence a thunderous laughter echoes through the dark space. Ha 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 ha, you are telling me that a god wants to employ me. A mortal. Ha 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 ha, even his light body couldn't remain on the sitting position anymore, he rolled through the void laughing like a maniac. The voice waited in silence for several minutes until the laugh stopped and the man could regain his bearings. Wow, I would have probably died if I was back in my body after laughing this much. Considering how your world wanted to get rid of you, I agree, you would have probably chalked on a fly that was, conveniently, close to your mouth, the voice replies with a deadpan voice. So petty for an omnipotent being, huh? He shrugs. So, what's this job and why do you need me to do it? Recently, due to an error in our system, many natural souls were given an opportunity to reincarnate with their memories in other worlds. Some of them abused the error and caused many disasters, some even caused their world to be destroyed and others annihilated entire races for their selfish reasons. Although there is plenty of lives on the multiverse, it happens often enough to overload us with an ungodly number of souls to process. So, we came up with this idea of sending others to deal with them since we cannot directly affect any mortal plane, stupid rules and regulations. He nods in understanding but raises a question, but why would I do it then? I mean, I rather reincarnate like them and live my life on my own terms instead of having a job to deal with. Good question. First, the error is being solved, so after it's done there won't be that issue anymore, memories will be wiped once one reincarnates. Second, well, there's a difference between reincarnating directly and accepting the job deal for a transmigration. If the soul was to reincarnate directly, they would get a few perks that would make it easy for them to live there, but the advantage would be more based on memories. Yes, one could take advantage from future knowledge, but the reincarnation would be strictly bound by the world laws. By accepting the deal you would get many more advantages, believe me, you won't be disappointed. And third, artificial souls have some little details about them, so you wouldn't be able to enjoy an afterlife retirement. Listen, you aren't the first to take this job, and there's a line of others just like you for me to deal with after we finish our talk. And what stops me from causing a calamity after the deal was done? I mean, you would be giving me way more firepower than a regular reincarnation. For all you know, I could just be way worse than any of them. That is a risk that we are willing to take. What's worse that could happen? The world shattering itself. That would happen anyway even if we didn't give you anything and left the reincarnated soul be. As I told you, this is a trial. If it works, it works. If it doesn't work, it won't make the final outcome any worse. Other than that, we have been observing you for a while, and not only you survived 30 years with your artificial soul, you kept your sanity for over 3 years here, all alone on the void. Your will is strong. He shakes his head. As strong as my will may be, power changes people. The voice interrupts him. And so does despair, but you never changed, you never gave up on living. Yes, you may have abandoned your dreams, but you never abandoned your life. Of many options, you could be considered one of the safest bets. If you can't do it and fall, we will have to depend on the others, but that's on us. After a minute of consideration, he just sighs and nods. What else can he do? But then he remembers of a tiny detail. Wait, you said I wasn't dead. I've been here for years, and now with the job. I didn't lie to you. First of all, little mortal, I may not be the god, but I am a god. Stopping time on your little solar system for a few years is nothing to me. Second, you are alive. If you decide to reject our offer, we will simply send your soul back to your body after erasing your memory of this meeting, and you will back to survive as long as you can until you die. We are giving you a choice, but remember the details that I talked about. Well, artificial souls have no reincarnation, heaven, or hell after death. They are erased permanently. So, this is a chance for you. Will you take it or not? Although his body was merely a human-shaped light, the divine entity could have sworn that they saw a smirk on the man's face. All right then. Let's talk business. I can offer you many things, but I can't break the natural balance of the world you are going. Some rules can be bent to the limit, but we can't break any, otherwise the consequences will make this whole effort pointless, since breaking the natural laws instantly erases a world. So first you may pick which world is available for you. All of these on the list are the ones with a reincarnation mark on them, so pick one. These are the one available for the people from your planet. A window opened in front of him. almost like a large computer screen that he could operate with. Though on the screen many options were available, from Naruto to Supernatural, comics, movies, animes, mangas, cartoons and series, it didn't lack options. God damn. There's even Minecraft here, are you serious? Who the hell would reincarnate in Rick and Morty? He scrolled down. You gotta be kidding me. Even fucking Looney Tunes. What can I say? You humans are just that weird. He kept browsing and then a doubt came to his mind. So my power is limited by the world. If I pick One Piece, will I get One Piece related powers? Yes and no. As a transmigrator you have way more freedom than that. The powers will be slightly reshaped to fit the world laws. As I said, the laws can be bent but there's a limit to it. For example, you could pick One Piece world and chose powers from Bleach world. The powers would be reshaped to fit One Piece but you would still retain some unique aspects of the original power from the Bleach world regardless. It's possible to bend the laws to a certain extent, but if you chose Looney Tunes and request for a Dragon Ball power, then, yeah. I can't do much for you there. But Daffy Duck is a wizard. He couldn't see anything but he could swear that he felt an intense deathly glare on his back for some reason. Pick your world. Damn, it seems that this ROB needs to relax a bit more. I wonder if they have a bar or tavern in the God realm. So grumpy. He keeps scrolling until he finds one that interests him. Oh. The Avatar world. The voice replies. Well, that one depends. If it's the Four Nations then yes, the one with the blue people. It exploded a few years ago due to a reincarnator. He could have sworn that he saw the voice shrugging beyond the veil of darkness. Right. The awkward silence remained for a few seconds until he spoke again. Alright, I picked the Avatar world. It has a somewhat hard magic system. I mean, it's not like people can create extra bending other than the ones already known, and even if they can, they are all based on specific laws. People can't just spawn a meteor out of thin air. The limitations are very reasonable too. Although Sozin's comet and full moon are variables, they don't really break the system. From all interesting fantasy worlds, this is one of the most balanced. You seems to have thought about it for quite some time. Are you one of those weirdos that dream of being reincarnated or transmigrated to another world? Hey. I take offense in that. If you were in my place, facing the world laws that are trying to destroy you, you would also try to find escapism in fantasy. Fair enough. So, what about my powers? How do we do that now that we got the world selected? That's very simple. I will give you 1 wish and 5 knowledge points. The wish is your basic power source, so pick it carefully. If you select a system as a wish, all I will give you is a system strictly limited by the laws of Avatar. You will be powerful but not unstoppable by any means. Picking a system alone is often a bad idea. I don't know why people like them so much. Yes, you can grow stronger faster, but picking a smart wish can easily overshadow that advantage. There's no inventory space. Either, that would be a power on its own. Remember, your wish will be reshaped or nerfed to fit the world. Don't expect to retain 100% of your choice. In past cases we had people dying because of that. They requested Saitama's power and didn't listen to me. All they got was an eternal bald head. He just shrugs. He also didn't like systems. Yes, they are good to help track of progress and details, but the system is usually a support thing, not main power. Without a main power and only a system, he believes that he could easily become a very strong bender, but only to the limits of bending, nothing above that, and probably not even an avatar, just a regular bending master. And since he is going to live his life in another world, he don't want endless grind for petty stat points. He wants to make his new life worth living. He kept in silence for a while, thinking of the possibilities. I need a strong base, some power that keeps me in line with the world laws so it doesn't diminish too much to the point of becoming useless. Scion. Probably not possible. It would be nerfed to the ground. A devil fruit. Possibly a Logia would work, but no, not when there's waterbenders around. That by itself is a huge weakness, and I don't even know the limitations of the world laws. For all I know, they can downgrade Goro Goro no Mi into a slightly more powerful lightning bending, and Mera Mera no Mi to regular fire bending. Wait. The voice said 1 wish, not 1 power. If my wish has more than just a single power and all of them just fit, he grins, thinking of the possible loophole. A powerful bender to the point of being a one-man army, deadly, badass, good-looking, with a fighting style that can easily adapt to the Avatar world, and more importantly, someone that I would accept becoming. It makes no sense to start this journey just for the sake of power. I want to enjoy this life. He raises his head. I wish to become Uchiha Madara. Chapter 2, Let's Talk Business. He raises his head. I wish to become Uchiha Madara. There was a choke sound echoing through the void as soon as he said his wish. Why, you gotta be kidding me. That dash. He instantly interrupted the voice, you said one wish not one power, again. Is all on the details. If he could grin, he would have a massive evil grin from ear to ear on his face right now. That's. Are you going back on your word? God. You can't have the full power of Uchiha Madara. The world laws won't bend that much. It's impossible. But that's what we are doing here, it's all a negotiation, let's talk business, how can we balance it? He suddenly incarnated his inner lawyer, fighting for his own cause. No, Rinnegan. That's impossible. You even said yourself that you didn't want people spawning meteors. Fair enough, he waves his hands dismissively. Honestly, he didn't care about the Rinnegan. He didn't pick Madara just for his power, but he will try to squeeze every single possibility out of this god. All I want is an eternal Mangekyo Sharingan and I'm fine. It's also impossible, the ocular powers of each eye will break the laws. He thinks for a second, without the eye powers having a Mangekyo Sharingan becomes quite useless except for. Give me a 3-Tomo Sharingan that also allows me to use Susanoo without blindness then. It's not too unbalanced. How is that not unbalanced? Susanoo is a freaking war god. The spirit world exists, so such power should be doable if we bend the laws to its limit. Let's see a possible way to make Madara work in the Avatar world. Make me a firebender. You can take all the jutsu away since chi isn't chakra. I just want my talent for firebending being equal to Madara's talent for ninjutsu. Replace the chakra pool for an equivalent chi pool. The Susanoo can be treated like a guardian spirit under my control or something, and the defense should be roughly similar to Aang on his ultimate avatar state against Ozai. See. Easy. Easy, you say. The voice stopped talking for a bit, although it's stretching to the point of nearly breaking the laws. It's possible. The Sharingan would be an outlandish power, but not to the point of being incompatible with some spirit powers. No 6 paths, no Kyubi summon, no Mokuton. Since he accepted being a firebender, he won't be able to use actual justice since it's not compatible with Avatar's chi. No Izanagi or Izanami. Wait. The Genjutsu, it's out of limits. Why? Illusions are a thing that more than one spirit can do. Energy bending is a thing. And it's not limited by the world laws of bending. Anyone could technically learn, even if they already are an elemental bender or not a bender at all. We can link Genjutsu with energy bending or something like that. Only basic illusions, nothing on the level of Mangekyo Sharingan. He nods, fair enough. Phew, on your power will be that then. He shakes his head, no. I didn't ask just for Uchiha bloodline as power, I asked to be Uchiha Madara. Although I lost many of his ultimate moves, I want the rest of the package. Taijutsu skills, combat experience, appearance, even gunbai, make the gunbai reflect the bending back to its bender, and it consumes my chi every time it does. It's not that unbalanced. All I want to keep is my own personality and memories. None of this would be worth it if I just cease to exist and becomes the actual Madara. I want to enjoy my life. I think I deserve it. He shrugs. All right. By the way, you really went for the overpowered wish, huh? He shakes his head. That's not it. You see, Madara wasn't my first thought, Itachi was, but I knew you would freak out about Genjutsu, and although even after the balancing Itachi would still remain quite strong, why settle for that when I can go for Madara? Way more combat experience and I won't have to worry about any possible disease that would have gotten me killed by the age of 20. I could have picked Obito, but I knew you would never let me have Kamui, so what's the point of that? He also didn't know if by picking Obito he would have gone to the Avatar world with a half-destroyed face and mutilated body and a single eye. It isn't worth the risk if you can just pick a better wish. Very well, but the gunbai will have a simple spirit fused with it so it can reflect things. It will only activate with the Sharingan, but anyone else can just take it and use it as a regular weapon. By no means it can be summoned back to your hand, or anything like that, so don't lose it. After that a soft glow spread all over the light in human form, indicating that the wish was granted. An evil grin would have been all over his face right now if it was possible. The voice didn't reject the details, it was so fixed on the big stuff that it forgot a tiny bit detail. Madara chakra pool is massive, turning that amount into chi would make me have near unlimited chi when compared to ordinary people. Hell, I bet only an avatar in the avatar state would be able to outlast me since that they get unlimited chi in that state, and that's not even considering the destructive power, adding Susanoo. Heh. I can win. If the voice had a head, it would be having a nasty headache now. Now about the 5 knowledge points we are giving you. you don't have to worry about Madara-related skills, you will already know them all as they come with his experience that you asked, but things related to the Avatar world will demand using one of the points that we gave you. The Genjutsu is part of package, but any extra energy bending would require for you to learn and comprehend on your own. He stops to think for a bit. He knows a lot about Avatar, more than a lot considering that he knows everything that was possible to know from Aang's awakening to the end of Legend of Korra. Small things in between are irrelevant and could be learned as he goes, and there was 100 years of war before Aang, but considering how everything was around the existence of the Avatar, most of the needed stuff was already known, except for some obscure knowledge that the show didn't go too much into detail. Fist knowledge would be: I want to know all languages from the Avatar and spirit world, how speak, write and read them. Smart. It's a detail that most people would skip. As I said, anything from the Avatar world would be unknown, and language, how to write and read in its various forms would obviously be unknown to a transmigrator. With click sound, another glow appears around him. The knowledge was acquired. I want to know how to achieve immortality. At least biological immortality is becoming ageless. The key of the question is on the how. If he asked if there was a way, the voice could just answer with a yes or no, but asking how it gives him direction, and perhaps a possibility of using another knowledge point to get it. It may cost 2 out of his limited 5 points, but come on, eternal youth is worth it, isn't it? He might be able to find this information in Wan Shi Tong's library, but have you seen the size of that place? He might die of old age before finding a clue about it. He is no Avatar. The spirit won't spare his time to help him. Are you willing to sacrifice 1 point just to know that? He nods. Sigh. It's related to opening your chakras. Done on a specific way will give you many useful perks. It won't directly empower you but will make you highly immune to many things, and age is one of them. Eternal youth is impossible, but you will earn a greatly increased longevity. On top of that, once you reach your peak, your body will only age again on the final 10 years of your life. Eternal youth, or as you said, biological immortality, should be considered a curse for a mortal, not a blessing. He stops for a second, and stares at the void for several seconds, thinking of what he just heard. Things are more beautiful because we are fated to die, huh? Well, I can't disagree with the voice. I doubt I could attach myself to anything if actually had immortality. It's just, who never wished to remain young forever. Perhaps it's just my fear of death due to my past life. Sigh. But it is as the voice said, after a certain point it will become like a curse. Watching everyone around me die while I remain, just thinking about it already depresses me. I could share the knowledge and keep them alive too, but how many generations can I keep doing that before we all lose our sanity and our humanity? If that's the case, my soul will be destroyed after my death because I am an anomaly. Is it really worth it? Now, I understand your worry, but I said I would tinker your soul, so when the time comes, you will not be destroyed. You will come to me for your final judgment. You won't be able to reincarnate, but heaven's door will be open for you just like a natural soul. I know that now you think that we could just fix all the others like you, but it is as I said, although uncommon, it's not rare. There's too many like you. We would have to spend a tremendous effort just for that goal, and we are talking about the multiverse here. It's not just humans, it's not just a bunch of planets, it's a nearly endless universes. Even for us it's difficult. He nods. From the perspective of an earthling, is really hard to imagine the scale. Just like saying something is 10 million times the temperature of the sun, we can tell it's absurdly hot, but we have no way of understanding the actual scale. Our imagination is limited by our knowledge. Very wise words. To think you had that much wisdom in you. To think that you had that much sass in you. They both laugh for a while, then they go back to their negotiation. So, what else you want? You have 3 points left. I want all the knowledge you can give me related to the chakras, how to open them and everything. Though so. Another glow appears around him. 2 more. I want the knowledge of the best firebending technique in existence, including the best chi breathing technique to improve my chi pool. Very funny, you think I'm one of these ROBs that accept 3 wishes in one because they were requested together. The language one was acceptable because there aren't many languages in the Avatar world, and the knowledge itself, it's quite simple, but this one will cost you your 2 last points. Is that what you want? He sighs. Well, it was worth the shot. Well, I will have to learn conventional energy bending on my own. If Amon achieved it on his own, so can I. I might not have blood bending, but I refuse to believe that there's only one way to do it. Nodding, he replies, yes, it's acceptable. Was a pleasure doing business with you. Voice. And 2 more glows appear around him, one after the other. Ha ha ha, yes, it was very entertaining. I hope I don't see you anytime soon. Yeah, I don't want to see you soon either, but when I come back I hope you welcome me as an old friend. Sure, so should I send you 2 years before Aang's awakening? Is that acceptable? Wait, do I have a choice? More like a time frame. I can't send you too far back, otherwise the butterfly effect would be disastrous. I am sending you there to help the world, not to ruin it. How far back can I go? I can send you 10 years before Aang's awakening, right after Katara and Sokka's mother is taken. Saving her would bring them joy, but it could put the fate of the world in danger, so I can't allow it to happen. But sending you that far on the past will add some limitations on you until roughly 2 years before story begins. Fair point. And when will my reincarnator friend arrive? Any hunting tips? I don't know. It is marked for reincarnation, so I assume it will be at some point in the timeline. Keep an eye out for outlandish things. Reincarnators have an awful habit of using their knowledge openly, be it creating technology or bringing food recipes from their world. They are pretty easy to spot. The same for you. Being Madara and all that. Noted. By the way, if they are good people, should I kill them regardless? I will leave that to your judgment. This is a trial and humans are quite unpredictable creatures. Who knows, perhaps the reincarnator is good-hearted and you just earned yourself a free life in the Avatar world to enjoy. He laughs, ha ha ha, that would be nice. He stares at the portal appearing behind him. It almost looks like the hyperspace jump from Star Wars, floating towards the portal without looking back, but then shouts. Be a champ and send me to the Southern Air Temple, please. I don't want to appear in the middle of Ba Sing Se sewers or, God forbid, Ozai's restroom. He hears a loud laugh from behind. It seems that the entity really is amusing and fun. Do they miss this kind of carefree talk? Who knows, perhaps most souls don't talk like that to a godlike being with untold powers. He wonders if being a god is boring. But just as he reaches the portal, a final glow appears around him. Instinctively turning around, he starts to be sucked into the portal and hears a booming voice. Consider this a parting gift, so you can play ninja in the Avatar world. And like that, everything disappears, his consciousness is gone, and when he finally wakes up, he finds himself laying down on a stone floor, staring at a broken ceiling, gentle clouds drifting through the sky and gentle bird sounds in the distance. Leaning forward on a sitting position, he looks around the ruins of the Southern Air Temple, quite well preserved if you ignore a few broken walls and ceilings. Looking at himself for a bit, he notices that he is wearing black robes, like the ones Madara used to wear when walking around Konoha. Then he looks at his hands, small childlike hands, perhaps 8 years old. Motherfucker. They could have told me about the age thing. Sigh. So these are the limitations of going this far back. Standing up, he walks to a balcony like staring down the mountain, inhaling the pure air. At least it gives me more time to learn and master everything before I grow up. Turning around, Madara walks back inside the temple with a satisfied smirk. Let's do this. Creators. Chapter 3, Into the Avatar World. Looking around the temple, Madara could imagine how beautiful this place was on its prime. Right now small snowflakes were already falling. It seems that it's the beginning of the winter. 10 years. Assuming that Aang awakened precisely 100 years after the beginning of the war, I can presume that right now is around 90 AG, perhaps 89 AG, or 91 AG. Well, who cares? Looking around, he felt melancholy to think that such peaceful place was the target of a genocide. God damn, Roku, why did you think that everything would be alright just by face-slapping Sozin and leaving like that? Sozin was a monster, but you had your fair share of the blame for all of this. How naive you were. I can accept Aang, he is just a kid, but you were a grown man. Sigh, I wonder what Kyoshi would have done in your place. Walking through the corridors of the temple, with his hands sliding through the walls, seeing and feeling the engravings in each wall, hard to believe that I came to an animated cartoon world. Chuckles, no one would believe me if I managed to go back. Not that I want to go back. He walked for hours, sightseeing and exploring every room available to him. Most of the rooms were locked behind doors that required airbending to open. Even if he could force them to open, he wouldn't do it. He had nothing to gain by destroying such historic place. His goal on the Southern Air Temple was a simple one, a calm place devoid of people so he could train in peace. The temple itself was in ruins, but there were plenty food and water sources all around. This place housed hundreds of monks back then. It's impossible that they didn't have natural resources nearby. I can't stay for long. In a year at most, my clothes won't fit me anymore and I will be forced to go out. 1 whole year in seclusion, I think I can handle it. I will have enough time to get my firebending going. I also don't know exact dates. I know Katara's mom is already gone by now, but what about Iroha's son? If I save him, would Iroha fight for the throne? Probably. Would he win? That's tricky. Ozai will already have the royal court under his leash. That and the current Fire Lord's death timing was a bit too convenient, wasn't it? Almost like it was pre-planned. Variables, too many variables. But then again, I am not here to save the world. That's the Avatar's job. I'm here to track a reincarnator. It's just that, knowing that I can prevent good people from suffering tragedies while doing nothing leaves a really bad taste in my mouth. Fucking butterflies. Sigh, for all I know saving Iroha's son might prevent him from giving up the crown. A possible civil war would start and it would help destabilize the Fire Nation and slow down the invasion a bit. But on the long run, Ozai will probably win. He is ambitious enough to defend his claim and ruthless enough to play dirty, and if Iroha actually go against him I doubt Ozai would spare his brother. Hell, even his father might have died by his schemes. And without Uncle Iroha many things will change for the worst. The more I interfere with certain key events, more and more the responsibility will fall on my shoulders. I don't want to be the one facing Ozai to end the war. That's the Avatar's fucking job. Looking around he spot many places with natural resources, from vegetables and fruits to clean water sources. Looking at his mirror image on the water he wasn't shocked by what he saw. His height was a bit over 4 foot tall, his long black mane was quite short, around shoulder length but already covering half of his face. Sharp black eyes that displayed wisdom and curiosity. Would you look at that? I might grow up to be a lady killer in the Avatar world. I mean, considering how easy fucking Sokka got girls all over him. I don't think I will suffer at all. Satisfied with what he saw and his discoveries he turned around and kept exploring the abandoned temple. Reaching the main training area of the temple he spotted something that he completely forgot standing right on the center, his gunbai, an exact replica of Madara's. He couldn't help but grin as he walked close to it. This is way too big for me right now. I can't wield it with a child's body. I wouldn't even be able to walk properly with it attached to my back. Better keep it safe inside the temple until then. No one comes to this place anymore, otherwise people would have looted the old firebender's armor scattered all over this place. They could go for a decent price anywhere. It's wartime and resources are finite. It's not even easy to reach up here without a flying bison or technology. He grabbed it with both hands and carried to the corner of the training room. Now, it's time to learn how to dance. Days passed, the snow started to get heavier and heavier. No more grass could be seen covering the outdoor grounds, only a white layer of snow. Bursts of fire exploded through the training grounds as young Madara kept punching, kicking, spinning, jumping. His body was young but he had peak Madara's combat experience. He just needed to adapt his firebending knowledge to his already developed fighting style. He discovered that although his experience and knowledge regarding Madara's combat style and technique was flawless, he couldn't bring it to 100% effectiveness. He reached around 50 to 60% of it. Why? His body, his stride was not long enough, he was not tall enough, the reach of his arms was not far enough. Madara's experience was based on a grown man's body, not a 8-year-old child. While an adult Madara would need 1 step to reach his enemy, he needed 1.5. It may not sound much but it makes a huge difference in actual battle. For some reason he also noticed he had the habit of spitting fire through his mouth. He thought about it and came to the conclusion that it was because of the real Madara's experience in combat. Back in the Naruto world, katan was mainly through their mouths. He can recreate basically every katan through firebending, but he is having problems with actual bending. His body and experience were not used to punch and kick fire. Luckily, he had the firebending knowledge from the voice to slowly fix that issue. Regardless of knowledge, it was hard. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. It's not about being a prodigy. Madara was far above the standard level of talent of those so-called prodigies, but everything takes time. It's not just pushing the fire out. That was achieved on the first day. It was merging it with combat. It was control, finesse, and muscle memory. This is the Avatar world. Here power does not just level up. It's less about raw power and more about your control over it. Otherwise old Zuko would spam Azula's blue fire since it is a leveled-up version of regular fire, but he couldn't do it even after decades of training. Why? He assumed that Azula was born with a tremendous chi pool, and instead of training to outlast her opponents with her chi reserves, she decided to burn double or triple the amount of chi to increase the intensity of the flames and destroy her opponents instantly. Heh. That's quite like her, isn't it? During his meals he ate simple vegetables and fruits that he found around the place. There was many sources of water available, so he could easily have enough to drink and even a small river to bath. He also used his firebending to hunt some birds that flew close enough to enter his reach. To be honest, it tasted bland, but he was enjoying life. For the first time he could sleep without having to keep an eye open for any calamity that the world decided to throw on him. He took his time meditating during the sunrise before his training, and during the sunset right after. Bending was not just physical, it was spiritual as well, and he for sure knew he needed to calm himself down. Living 30 years under fear of death leaves a mark on anyone's psyche. He could finally calm down and search for his inner peace. Perhaps this was Iroha's way, who knows? He doesn't have a system to tell him in numbers his precise amount of chi. All he knows is what his body could endure by quantifying through time. At the beginning he noticed that after a healthy dinner, 8 hours sleep and a decent breakfast, he could keep practicing firebending non-stop for about 4 hours. That is a huge discovery and display how massive his chi pool is. 4 hours of constant firebending until his fire starts failing him. He never saw anyone in the show fighting for more than half an hour before feeling exhausted. After 1 year of training his clothes could still fit him well, since they were quite loose to begin with. They are not dirty since he washed them constantly and never wore anything other than his pants during his training, but he knew that in a few months to half year at most he would need to go down. It's better to go down while not looking like a clown wearing clothes that clearly doesn't fit him. He is Uchiha Madara now. Have some dignity, man. Looking down he could see a sea of clouds covering the base of the mountain where the Southern Air Temple was situated. Gulp. I really didn't think this through, did I? He started jumping around and started warming up his body while talking to himself. You can do it. You are Uchiha fucking Madara. Just a big piece of rock won't stop you. He first looked around for some rope, but the few pieces of rope he found were not optimal in any way. He won't trust his life to that. He slowly climbed down, subtle movements, always keeping in check if there was a loose stone to avoid. Easy now, there's no hurry. We have 9 fucking years. We can take all the time in the world to climb down this bitch-ass mountain. He managed to climb down for about 10 minutes until he lost his grip on the stone wall. He knew he fucked up. Shit. He closed his eyes, preparing himself for the impact while screaming to the top of his lungs. Although he could soften the fall with fire bending, or even use fire to glide back to the mountain Azula style, but he was not a native of this world. He was here for 1 year. As a 21st century person that was used to be screwed by the world in anything he ever tried, his first reaction was fear, but then after a few seconds he felt nothing. Just a gentle breeze. Then he noticed he was not falling. Opening his eyes, he saw something that made his brain suffer from lag. He was at the exact same place. He didn't fall a single inch, with both of his feet touching the stone wall, just like a true shinobi from Naruto world. Madara then remembered what the voice said when he gave his final gift right as he entered the tunnel. That motherfuck, he stopped himself from cursing. It was a very precious gift after all. Who knows if the voice can hear him and just take his gift back as easy as they gave him. Why risk it? God damn it, they could have told me. At least they could have left a note by the gunby like, hey, by the way, I gave you the ability to walk on surfaces. That would have saved me so much stress and time. I bet I lost at least 10 years of my lifespan. I bet you did that on purpose. And just like that, another childlike scream echoed through the stone peaks of the Southern Air Temple, with no one to hear it. Running down the mountain with his Naruto-style run, it didn't take long for him to see the base of the mountain. At least my body remembered it. God damn it, man. Me, the almighty and imposing Uchiha Madara, screaming like a child. Good thing no one knows. He narrowed his eyes dangerously, and no one will ever find out. Chapter 4, A Warm Welcome. Through the forest that spreads below the Patola mountain range, the mountain range where the Southern Air Temple is located, the blur of a 9-year-old Madara can be spotted. Jumping from tree branch to tree branch to tree branch, he is smiling from one ear to the other. I knew it would be fun, but damn, traveling like a shinobi is awesome. After a 8-hour-long travel, he finally stops by the beach, carrying on his back an improvised bag made with the old ropes he found at the temple. He would never trust those to climb up and down, but using them to help him carry things, especially food, was more than a good deal. Taking a deep breath, he sits down and puts what he was carrying on his back on top of a rock. Running through the forest for 8 hours straight is quite exhausting. That and running down the mountain's surface drained my chi like crazy. Why can't they just add a manual to these things? Learning through experience isn't always pleasant. Sigh. 8 long hours and not a sign of civilization. I really didn't think this through. There must be a way out of this place that isn't a flying bison or a ship. I doubt I will find either of them around these parts, and I don't know if I can run on water as much as I can run down the mountain. On Naruto, those two did not follow the exact same rules. I feel that water walking will drain me way more, and the closest civilization is quite far away. I'm already very tired. Looking around, enjoying the view of the ocean during the sunset and eating some fruits that he picked on his way here. Not a bad life, he grins. At least no civilization means I don't need to worry about being robbed while sleeping outdoors. After eating, he found himself a comfortable spot to rest and used his firebending to light up a campfire to keep himself warm, since snow is starting to fall again. After that he sat down and leaned back on a rock. Tomorrow, I need to find a way out of this island, otherwise I will have to go all the way back to the temple. I didn't find a single lake or river down here. Luckily the fruits helped me a bit with my thirst as well. And just like that, everything went dark and was welcome to the dreamlands. On the next morning, Yawn waking up and rubbing his eyes after stretching himself, he looks around, scanning the area with his sleepy eyes. Looking at the sky, he notices that it's dawn and get himself ready to get up. That's when he hears splash sounds on the water. Alarmed, he looks at the sound direction and sees something that bring a huge grin to his face. Yeah. That will work. Not only that, but it will be fun as hell. On the sea he spots a school of fish, not just regular fish but massive bright-colored koi fish swimming freely on the water. Now that I remember, Aang had a favorite spot in the island to ride elephant koi. Oh, this will be really fun. Grabbing his makeshift bag and tying it to his back, he rushes towards the water. Come on, don't let me down. I already ruined my image with the mountain debacle. Don't let me fail here surface walking. Without thinking twice, he jumps from the sand towards the water, and it worked. Ha! I knew I could count on myself. A joyous laugh could be heard as long black-haired child ran on the water towards the school of koi fish. Once he was close enough, he jumped and used firebending through his feet to propel himself even further, landing directly on the back of a massive elephant koi. Hello there, my newest best friend, could you take me to Earth K-? Before he could finish his request, the elephant koi launched itself at full speed towards the ocean. Young Madara instantly grabbed the huge fins and used his chi to keep his feet stabilized on the koi's slippery back. He tried to sit down on the back of the koi, but once he did, the koi splashed around, almost throwing him out. It seems that standing up had no issue, but they didn't like when people sat down on top of them. Captain. I apologize. And just like that, a small school of elephant koi traveled through the southern sea. Young Madara didn't know, but those fish were actually migrating to Kyoshi Island. Those koi fish were one of the top export products from there. Underscore 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 underscore. It was another calm afternoon on Kyoshi Island. Many fishing village people were already counting how much fish they managed to get for the day. The boats were already docked and everyone on the docks was already preparing to go home. That was the plan for most of them except for the ones in Oyaji's village. By the coast, many villagers were aghast while watching what I was coming towards their docks, a school of elephant koi. Now, although they were famous all over the Earth Kingdom by their product, elephant koi was not a common catch, not at all. It was considered a luxury food all over the world. To put in perspective, that kind of fish was one of Beifongs' family favorite dish. It was cheaper to buy a set of armor than buy elephant koi meat. As uncommon as it was, what made it ever more shocking was the fact that there was a boy riding on the top of the koi in the lead. As the school of fish drew closer and closer, more and more villagers arrived by the docks. Old veterans that resided on the village already grabbed weapons. They were an isolationistic island, fearful of strangers and hated the Fire Nation to the core. Let me see. Someone is riding the big fish. Someone is riding the big fish. I bet I could do it better. Humph. A bunch of kids were having fun watching the show, giggling, yelling and pointing fingers. The adults, not so much. They were worried and prepared to strike at a moment's notice. The crowd parted ways for a stout old man with a fluffy long beard and a unique hairstyle, partially tied on a high ponytail and partially loose on the back, and a huge forehead. Village leader, give us the order and we will strike as soon as that kid set foot in here. That's probably a Fire Nation spy. The stout old man let out a sigh. Relax everyone, that's a kid. Spy or not, we will have no problem in capturing and interrogating him. He barely finished his sentence and other grown-ups in the crowd started yell at each other. Bring the ropes. We should use shackles. Regular ropes can't hold a firebender, you idiot. After roughly 1 minute they saw the school of fish stop moving towards the docks and the boy patting the big koi on the lead before he jumped towards the water. What happened next left everyone gawking with wide eyes. The boy started running on the water. Wait, what? Wow. He runs on the water. That's so cool. Can you do that better than him as well, Kilo? Humph. The kids went crazy and the adults' brains stopped working. That's impossible. Is he a waterbender or something? Ha! A waterbender. My ropes will work on him. Who's the idiot now, huh? Shut up, you moron, he can cut ropes with water as well. I got the shackles. I got the shackles. The old village leader kept staring at the young boy running towards them on the water surface. Since when does the Fire Nation employs children from other nations? That's some scary possibility. Anyone can potentially be a spy after all. Underscore 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 underscore. Madara jumped towards the docks. He was very careful to never use his firebending, knowing that anywhere in the world other than the Fire Nation itself, firebender wouldn't be welcomed at all. He even openly used his water walking to give people the false impression that he is just a powerful waterbender and be more welcoming. Knowing that as long as he kept his firebending secret he wouldn't have much problem socializing and meeting people from this world, very few places would be hostile towards him regardless just for being a new face around. That was the reason why he chose an isolated empty temple in the middle of nowhere. He could practice firebending away from the Fire Nation's watch and without being judged by the rest of the world. Phew, that was exhausting. At least they were quite fast. I almost fell many times, said Madara, talking to himself while shuddering as he remembers the many times he almost fell off and was left behind, but now he is finally enjoying the feeling of stepping on land after so long, happy to have found a village. Proper food, new clothes, decent bath, and more importantly, a comfy bed to sleep. But once he looked around and saw a massive crowd of villagers holding weapons, from swords to pitchforks, the first impression was of an angry mob hunting down a vampire or something. What the fuck? But once he spotted the old man that looked like the leader of the group and remembered who exactly that old man is, it finally clicked. Oh crap. Of all places he could have landed, of all villages and locations those damn fish could have taken him, it had to be the one place in the world that would shoot first and ask later just for being a stranger, regardless bending or anything else. Kyoshi fucking Island. You gotta be kidding me. Chapter 5, Facing an Angry Mob. You gotta be kidding me. Both parties kept staring at each other in silence for a whole minute. Even if Madara was only 9 years old, his waterbending mastery made the villagers fearful, especially considering that they were on the docks near the ocean. In their eyes young Madara held the terrain advantage even if they had numbers on their side. Kyoshi Island was an island state. They were not considered part of the Earth Kingdom, which means that they didn't get military help from anywhere. With barely a handful of earthbenders spread across all villages on the island, they didn't really have enough confidence to charge Madara. That was until a charming female voice broke the silence. What's going on here? Passing through the crowd, a group of armored females with face painting stood between Madara and the mob. I mean villagers. For fuck's sake mate, even the Kyoshi warriors came. I stepped in here for like 10 seconds, you fucking wait you damn elephant koi bastard, you got demoted from my newest best friend to my newest favorite dish. Taking a good look at the group of 10 Kyoshi warriors he couldn't help but praise their posture and fitness. Even with their armor, heavy thick kimonos and katanas attached to their waist, they had a perfect combat posture. It shows how much training they endure and how proficient they were in their art, not only that each one of them looked gorgeous with their face paintings on. So, you are the spy from the Fire Nation that is trying to enter our lands? Asked the leader of the Kyoshi warriors. Madara shakes his head in denial. I'm no spy, didn't you all see me how I arrived? Isn't that too high profile for a spy? Murmurs echoed through the crowd until one of the villagers yelled. Unless you knew we would think that way, and decided to trick us. Madara let out an exasperated sigh as he turned to the crowd. I am no spy, he shouted. But there's always that one asshole. That is exactly what a spy would say. On the background he could hear a bunch of yeah, and he is right, while the villagers nodded their heads like sages. Face-palming himself, Madara turned to the crowd in anger and called out that one asshole by shouting towards him. Hey you, big ugly guy with missing teeth. Yes. At least 5 male voices could be heard replaying him. This will be a long day, all I wanted was a soft bed. Madara turned to a specific big ugly guy with missing teeth and shouted. I'm talking to the fucking idiot carrying shackles. Taking a deep breath, stared at the men and continued, I'm no spy for fuck's sake. I'm 9 years old. But again, it was like trying to punch through a steel wall. One could try, but it would only hurt one's fist. Everyone is a potential spy. Are you a spy then? Asked Madara. No. Of course not. Isn't that exactly what a spy would say? An amused grin appeared on Madara's face. The murmurs started to getting louder and louder. Madara is managing to kick the hornet's nest and leaving them on each other's throat. He could clearly hear how many people were starting to doubt one another. Ah, how easy it is to pull this off when your target is a crowd of uneducated commoners. He couldn't help to praise himself. That was until the leader of the Kyoshi warrior let out an irritated shout. Enough. And just like that the whole mob got silenced, not a single sound. God damn, those girls run this place with an iron fist. You are coming with us, spy or not. We can't risk having you around without interrogating you first. She spoke. I refuse to be shackled or tied up. I'm no criminal, and if you try to force me, I will fight back. Madara replied. I don't think you understand your situation. We outnumber you 10 to 1, and that's not counting the whole village behind us. They might not charge you on their own, but if we charge you first, they will follow. Shaking his head, he spoke with a deeper tone. It's you who don't understand your situation. I'm by the sea. I have terrain advantage here, and worst case I can just run on the water and escape from here. You can't follow. Subtly doubling down on his waterbending mastery, while staring at each one of the Kyoshi warriors with a serious gaze, he continued, and even if you by some miracle prevent me from escaping, I will fight to the death. You may be able to take me down by relying on numbers, but I will take an arm and a leg of every single one of you with me. I wonder how long this village can survive without you girls to protect them in the future. Said Madara while crossing his arms in front of his chest imposingly and narrowing his eyes. Even the air around him seemed to get heavier, and they all felt it. It was a bluff. Although he could do exactly what he said, he wasn't willing to put his life on the line to fight the Kyoshi warriors. He had nothing to gain from it. He could win if he used his firebending, but he wasn't willing to do that around these people unless needed. Those warriors and the island itself was a key point for the Avatar's journey. Aang would awake, that's for sure, and he would come here even if it was just to play with the elephant koi, just like he first intended on the series. There's no doubt in that, but if he attacked to kill, he would stain his name permanently with the Avatar. He doesn't want to have the whole world against him. There's nothing to earn from that outcome. Just imagine the Avatar arriving and learning the stories of the firebender demon that burned a whole village to ashes along with its inhabitants. He would never be able to befriend Aang or anyone on his team after that. Not only that, it would be incredibly difficult to best those girls relying only on his taijutsu. They have been training for a decade or more. They were masters on their own right, and although he has real Madara's knowledge and experience, not only he only trained only for a single year, but his body is also not optimal for his fighting style yet due to his age. A half step makes a whole world of difference in a real fight. He might be able to do it, but at what cost? Can he survive the wounds on his own? The staring contest lasted for about 30 seconds, both sides trying to skin one another for openings and possible weaknesses. If you agree to come with us, we won't tie you down or shackle you. The Kyoshi leader said. The mob behind them didn't like that one bit. They started shouting and yelling, demanding the spy to be captured regardless of the cost. Even the Kyoshi warriors themselves got pissed with the angry mob at this point. One of them in particular had her eye twitching in annoyance. Those fucking idiots can't even see 5 inches ahead of their own nose. The kid is not wrong. An all-out battle in this situation is not optimal for us at all. If he manages to cripple 2 or 3 of us before we take him out, we will be terribly weakened for the foreseeable future. Looking around, she shakes her head. That's not even considering the collateral damage. I can see that this kid is not simple, not only his gaze but his confidence and posture. He is a little monster. At this point Madara couldn't help but cheer internally, but kept his poker face and replied, you can't expect me to believe that when the whole village is shouting demanding for my head regardless the cost, right? Exasperated, the Kyoshi leader spoke. How can we compromise then? That's simple. Give me your word as an honorable Kyoshi warrior that you will guarantee my freedom and safety unless I display any treacherous behavior towards you and your people. Biting the corner of her lips, she narrowed her green eyes. What he just asked is too much. The Kyoshi warriors take their honor more seriously than anyone. They would rather die than forsaking their honor. It seems that this kid knows them quite well. Fine. I give you my word as the leader of the Kyoshi warriors that you will remain unharmed and unrestricted unless you display any shady behavior towards the people of this island. Satisfied now? She expected him to still be wary of them, regardless of how much the rumors spoke about their honor. It's impossible to just trust rumors 100%, right? He is bound to have some wariness regardless, right? Madara smiled and relaxed instantly, completely abandoning his battle-ready posture, and walked leisurely towards them, very satisfied. Come on, I'm hungry, dirty, and tired. Show me around, will ya? All that pressure he was emanating was gone, his serious deep, dark tone was gone, his imposing presence, gone. It's like he became a completely different person. Her eyes went wide and her mouth agape with his instant change of behavior. It seems I was wrong. With that the Kyoshi led Madara through an angry, noisy, and ugly crowd of villagers, taking him to an abandoned shack near their barracks. If he is going to stay in here, they will keep an eye on him every second of the day. Not that Madara cared, he was just walking while whistling, without a single ounce of worry. The Kyoshi warrior, named Kira, couldn't help but grin. What an interesting kid. Chapter 6, Kyoshi Island. Madara was escorted to an abandoned shack beside the Kyoshi warrior's training dojo. Once he got settled down, he asked if they could give him some food, water, and some clean clothes. He promised that he would pay it back with labor the next day if possible. Kira, the leader of the Kyoshi warriors, appointed one of the other 9 under her command to stay outside his door for the night. They made no efforts on hiding from Madara that he would be under heavy surveillance, and all he did was shrug. Hey, I was expecting being chased out of here under a rain of rocks, arrows, and cabbages. Not only I got a free place to sleep, I got some food and water and even a bodyguard to watch my back while I sleep. From where I came from, this can be considered the best treatment I've ever received. As all the other 9 left, the one staying behind approached Madara. She had long black hair tied on a high ponytail, with bangs covering half of one of her sharp silver-colored eyes. She was average height, 5 feet 5 inches, and had a slim, well-proportioned body with slightly thick lips. If she had black eyes instead of silver, she would look like a proper Uchiha, if she didn't have that thick face painting on. Let's introduce ourselves. I am Madara. What's your name? Asked Madara. She kept staring at him for a few seconds with an emotionless gaze before answer. You may call me Fei Lan. I will be responsible for keeping an eye on you for the time being. Oh, Fei Lan, lovely Nam dash. He got instantly interrupted by her. I'm not here to befriend you. No one here wants to befriend you. I'm just here to do my job, so as long as you don't do anything suspicious you won't be seeing each other once this little introduction is over. Madara stared at her in silence with a deadpan expression. Aren't you rude? I was about to invite you to sit on that chair over there so you could be comfortable. She turned around and walked towards the door. I will stay outside. You don't have to worry about me. But outside is dash. He got interrupted again. He is getting really pissed by her rudeness right now. It seems being subtle won't work with you, so let me say this straight then. There's nothing in this world that would make me accept staying inside this place just so I can watch you for the night. Don't overestimate yourself, boy. And just like that, without even waiting for a reply, she walked outside of the house and closed it with a loud bang. What rude little bitch this one. He muttered to himself. Are all the Kyoshi warriors this bitchy, or is her period today? I might have to consider leaving here sooner, it's just not worth it. He sat down on the chair and started considering his next moves. I need to find a good way to have a decent income. There's many utility items that I want to purchase that will make my time in the Southern Air Temple way more comfortable. I also will need a ship to carry things around, TSK. I obviously won't be buying one, it's wartime and Fire Nation ships are all over the place. I believe no one will miss one, hee. He tapped his finger on the table and continued. I will also need more clothes, many clothes to last me for at least 5 years. Getting my armor forged would be great, but it's not needed right now. I am still growing. I don't want to waste money on something that I will have to wait a decade to use or something that I will throw away in a year because it doesn't fit me anymore. He stood up and started walking in circles. I also need to figure out how to activate the Sharingan. The method that came with my memories is not working for some reason. Is it related to my age? As I expected, the Sharingan here is completely different than in Naruto world. There's no emotions involved and it seems that is related to my chi pool, but I'm not sure of the specifics, and there's also the method for opening my chakras. And like that, Madara spent hours planning and making mental notes to future possibilities until he started to feel sleepy and exhausted. Deciding to call it a day, he walked towards his bed. As he was removing his dirty black robes, picking up some ugly beige hemp clothes that the girls so graciously gave him. These look like fucking jail clothes. Shaking his head, he wore his hemp pants. When he was about to grab the top, he heard an incredibly loud thunder sound echoing through the island. What followed was a sound of heavy rain. It was the beginning of the winter after all. Kyoshi Island could be considered to be located on a tropical zone of this planet with no snow in sight, and rain during this time of the year was very common. He walked close to one of the windows by the door and looked outside to see the figure of a soaked Kyoshi warrior, with ruined and messy face painting and hair, under the heavy rain with no cover on sight. Would you look at that? He kept staring at her for a while and could clearly tell that her intense glare was on him. Those were not the eyes of someone that was just watching. That gaze was basically telling him subtlety, open the door. He looked around and saw a deserted road, no one in sight, just pure darkness with a few sparkles of candle light here and there coming from inside a few buildings nearby. Sadly, I heard that being subtle doesn't seem to work well with me. He closed the curtains, locked the door and laid down on the old bed, covered himself with a thick blanket and closed his eyes. What a shame. And just like that, he fell asleep and enjoying a long night of sleep in the comfiest place he ever slept on since he came to this world. On the next day Madara woke up to soft bird sounds on the distance. He never slept so well. His body was so relaxed that he didn't even want to get up from bed. That was until knock sounds came from the door. He rubbed his eyes and stood up, walking towards the door and unlocking it just encountered the leader of the Kyoshi warriors in front of his door. "Good morning," he said with a sleepy voice and a happy smile. "It seems you rested well during the storm last night," said the Kyoshi warrior. "What can I say? Rain sounds are cozy and makes me really sleepy. Was a great night. Where is Fei Lan, by the way?" "She is at the healer's tent. She got really sick and have a nasty fever. I shall take up her job until she gets better. My name is Kira." He displayed sadistic smirk that made Kira's green eye twitch. "Oh really? What a shame indeed." After that Madara left his shack and walked around the village, ignoring the dirty looks that everyone is giving him. This place is very cozy. It resembles Japan's Edo period. If he remembers correctly, Kyoshi Island culture was heavily inspired by Japanese culture, their clothes, armors and even food. Now that he thought about it, the Kyoshi warriors does wield katanas alongside their war fans. The roads were made of dirt, which were obviously wet after a long rainy night with many puddles here and there. The buildings were very traditional. He noticed that there were many stones on top of the roof. He learned from Kira that it's a way to prevent the tiles from detaching and sent flying during heavy storms. Their agriculture was mainly rice, as expected, and the people wore mainly kimonos and sandals, and it seems that during rainy weather they also have a thick coat of hay on their shoulders and carried the traditional Japanese hat, as known as kasa, on their back. All in all, this was a very peaceful society. It would be even better if it wasn't the dirty looks that everyone is giving him everywhere he goes, which it feels odd to him. Yes, they didn't like him, yes, they had a hostile behavior towards him, but there's something more in those looks. As they walk through the main road, with heavy blacksmith hammering sounds on the background mixed with charts being pulled left and right, Madara can't handle it anymore and turns to Kira. "What the hell is going on? Why they are staring at me like that? I might be suspicious, I admit it, but why are they looking at me as if I destroyed their families?" Kira was shocked by his question, and a helpless wry smile appeared on her beautiful face. "Well, you see, it's a bit complicated." Before she could explain any further, a group of at least 10 kids, all around the age of 5, some younger some a bit older, came running through the houses yelling at each other. "You are a spy." "I am not a spy, you fucking idiot." "I am not the fucking idiot, you are the fucking idiot." The kids kept playing and yelling at each other, repeating the words they listened yesterday at the docks, and that's when it's clicked. "Oh. That was the only thing Madara could say." "Yeah, I heard that they kept saying that since last night after your grand entrance at the docks." She answered him with a hidden amusement in her voice. He could only stand still in shock. He didn't even consider the fact that there were very young and impressionable children on the docks yesterday. He clearly saw and heard them the moment he arrived, and still cursed like a sailor. What to say in a situation like this? Taking a deep breath, he talked to himself. "Way to go, Madara, you achieved the impossible, made the paranoid Kyoshi people hate you even more. Why not just shout that you are a firebender as well?" Kira couldn't help anymore and started laugh. "Yeah, that would 100% make everyone hate you even more. I find it hard to even imagine that level of hatred. Our imagination is limited by our knowledge." Very wise words, by the way, although I have a good sense of humor and laugh at it. Don't even joke about being a firebender. Madara just nodded. "Yes, joke, of course." Chapter 7, Kira. As Madara is guided back to his abode by Kira after walking around the village for a whole day, the gears in his head keep spinning, thinking about the possibilities. Once they reach the door of his shack, he stops and turns towards her. "I don't know if would be me overstepping my boundaries here, but I have to ask, do you mind if I watch you girls practice on your dojo?" She looks at him suspiciously. "You want to learn our combat techniques?" "Look, Madara, after following you the whole day I believe less and less that you actually are a spy, but regardless of that, rules are rules, and even if you were to become a friend of our village, we don't teach outsiders, especially men, no offense. He chuckles, none taken, and no, I'm not asking to be taught, I'm asking to watch, it can be even just for one day, it's just that I also have my own martial arts and I want to compare to yours without the need of actual battle. She holds her chin with one hand and considers his request, I will talk to the village chief, that's not something even I, the current leader of the Kyoshi warriors, can just accept like that, it belongs to our culture after all. He nods, I understand, by the way, have you fought many Fire Nation soldiers? She raises a brow, some, why you ask? He shrugs, I heard Fire Nation soldiers study on an academy or school or something, and they have a standard combat style, you probably already noticed if you fought them, so once you spar with me you will see how different my combat is compared to them, easing your suspicions of me being a spy, and hopefully loose my metaphorical shackles a little bit. She chuckles, yeah, that could help your case a bit, but high ranks and nobles tend to have their own family style. Madara just kept staring at her with a deadpan expression. What, she asks. No noble would send their family as a spy, and about the whole being high rank on the Fire Nation army. I'm fucking 9 years old. She chuckles and give him an awkward smile, yeah, sorry about that, it's just that you don't talk like a 9-year-old at all. He just shrugs, anyone in my situation would have to mature fast dash, he then notices what he just said and stopped talking, turning towards the door and opening it, then I hope I receive good news about the whole thing, thank you for everything today. He bows his head slightly and entered his house before closing the door, leaving Kira with her thoughts outside. Anyone in your situation, huh? She muttered to herself and walked away contemplating. Underscore 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 underscore. Inside one of the biggest houses in the village, the stout old man that Madara recognized was brewing some tea for himself after a long day of work. Suddenly he hears knock sounds on the door. You may enter, he said. Excuse me then, said a melodious female voice as a Kyoshi warrior walks into the room after removing her boots by the entrance. Ah, Kyoshi leader Kira, welcome welcome, want some tea? He says with a kind grandfatherly smile. Hi there Oyaji, yes I could have some tea right now. She says as she walks towards the teapot and pours some tea for herself before sitting right across of him. So how can this old man help you today? It's about Madara, the outsider. Oh, the spy. He raises an eyebrow. She shakes her head, I don't believe he is a spy, he is too young and his behavior is not fitting for a spy at all, what kind of spy would just accept be openly known by the people whom they want to spy on? Oyaji shakes his head, you cannot underestimate how insidious the Fire Nation can be Kira, don't be naive, you know that he is a potential threat. Kira stares at him, but he can also be a potential friend. He did nothing wrong, on the contrary he walked around the village like a tourist, was polite, and didn't create any issue even if it was just me following him. He could have attacked or attempted to start trouble but he did nothing, he just took the hostile gazes of the villagers and shrugged them off. Oyaji stares at Kira's eyes with a serious gaze, you cannot underestimate their plans Kira, this could be all part of his plan. If it was up to me, we would have tied him up and extracted information out of him. Kira raises her eyebrows, that's extreme. Extreme? You want to know what's extreme? A 100-year war is extreme. The Kyoshi leader kept staring at the village leader for a whole minute in silence before giving up. She would never be able to convince this stubborn old man of opening their borders a tiny little bit. Kyoshi Island is too isolated and have no friends anywhere. We do have geographical advantage against an invasion, but without aid from the Earth Kingdom we won't be able to stop an army, only stall for time, and time for what? Who would have come anyway? She finished her tea and placed the small cup on the table. He asked to watch our training for a day. Oyaji snorted, of course he did, he is a spy and a spy's job is to gather information. She took a deep breath and said it, and I plan on accepting it. Oyaji's brain stopped working for a few seconds before exploding, you can't. Kyoshi warriors' technique are a secret of our people. He didn't say he wanted to learn, he said he wanted to watch for one day, he wants to compare with his own techniques and after considering his reasoning. I decided to accept it. I forbid it. You are not allowed. Her eyes narrows and her gaze intensifies, you forbid it. You have no say in this is our business, we don't meddle with your government and you don't meddle with our things, that's how our squadron always worked since its creation by Avatar Kyoshi herself, I'm merely informing you because it's the rules. Oyaji was about to reply when a childish voice echoed through his house. Oyaji. Oyaji. We finished cleaning the kitchen. You promised that our punishment would be over after that. Kira looked around and her gaze softened once she spotted a small 6-year-old girl with pale skin, blue eyes, and auburn hair cut into a common bob haircut with a high spiky ponytail, followed by a group 4 other kids, one of which resembles her a lot. Not now, Suki, Oyaji is busy, said the old man with a soft voice. Woo. It's Lady Kira from the Kyoshi Warriors. The little girl had stars in her eyes. Me and my friends decided that we will join the Kyoshi Warriors, Lady Kira. Kira let out a soft charming chuckle and kneeled in front of young Suki, patting her head, and we will obviously welcome such brave and strong girls, but you have to wait a few years first, so be patient, okay, she said, flashing a kind sisterly smile. All 5 little girls bobbed their heads up and down like chickens. Kira was their idol and what all of them dreamed to become: beautiful, strong, gentle and imposing. It was the image of the perfect woman in their eyes. But we wanted to see you fight more often. Is there a way to let us watch? Said the other girl that looked very similar to Suki, stuttering a bit. That triggered Suki. She didn't want their idol to see them as weak girls. Mingxia. But Kira just laughed. It's fine, it's fine. Then she thought about something and a smile blossomed on her face. In fact, next week we are planning on holding an open training so the younger generation can watch. If you girls want, you can dash. She couldn't even finish her words and the young girls started jumping around like the hyperactive children that they were, shouting in excitement. We want. We will be there. Yees. It was so cute that even Oyaji couldn't bring himself to ruin this moment. All he could do is frown as he stared at Kira. What a cunning woman. Then he took a deep breath and nodded. All right, Kira, go ahead and do it, but it will be only once, and I want to be there as well. I will also invite some earthbenders from neighbor villages to come and assist us in case of anything go wrong. Kira said nothing, just nodded, and after patting the head of all the other 4 girls she wore her boots, stood up and walked out of the house, leaving Oyaji to suffer from the hyperactiveness of the girls on his own. He could only let an exasperated sigh, turning to the girls with a smile. So, you cleaned the kitchen, huh? Well, it's time for me to do the inspection then. I got to go to the restroom. My tummy doesn't feel good. Underscore. Madara finished filling his bathtub with water, took his clothes off and jumped in. Although it was nothing more than an oversized buck that could fit a grown-up, it was more than enough for him. He secretly used his firebending to heat the water until it was the perfect temperature for him. He laid his head on the border of the tub and closed his eyes. Now I have to find a way to earn money, but who would employ a 9-year-old? I doubt that this village will just accept using their own money to pay me, considering how they stare at me. Looking at his own body, a 9-year-old doesn't inspire confidence on anyone for any job. The Kyoshi Warriors only backed down because they recognized my skills during our stare down, but that's only because they are knowledgeable of martial arts. The ordinary ignorant citizen from this place won't behave the same way. It seems that the Kyoshi Warriors are my only hope here. Sigh. I pray that everything works. He frowns. I hate being in a kid's body. People don't trust my skills, people don't trust my words, and I can't even have fun. Going this far back wasn't worth it at all. Chapter 8, Demon. After a whole week of doing nothing all around the town, living of the kind donations that came from Kira, which improved a lot after their talk that day, Madara was putting his black robes on. Today was the day that he was informed that he would be allowed to watch the Kyoshi Warriors training, but his goal was not just watch, he will fight. He has to fight. When your words are discredited, when your actions are ignored and only warriors seem to understand you, you have to talk the warriors' language, using your fists. Checking if everything was properly tied, Madara nodded to himself, and after putting on his black shinobi sandals he walked out of the house. Today the mood of the town was different. He could see quite some new faces around. For someone that explored the village for a whole week, he knew quite a bit about the inhabitants, so new faces could only mean one thing. They are preparing for any trouble. His eyes narrowed and he smirked as he walked to the Kyoshi dojo that was very close to his shack. Let's have some action. As he walked inside the dojo, he noticed that it was already full. Not only the 10 Kyoshi warriors were giving a lecture about combat techniques to young children, even Oyaji, the village leader, was here as well. Not only that, but from the moment he stepped in, Oyaji has been eyeing like a hawk. While taking his sandals off before stepping on the training area, he hears his favorite female voice talking to him. "You have quite unique shoes, don't you?" said Kira as she approached him. He just shrugged like he usually does. "What can I say? It's the kind of shoes that my people usually wear. I never seen or heard of anything like it." "Of course you haven't, the Fire Nation don't have these," he replied with a smirk. She could only reply with a smirk of her own while shaking her head. She noticed that although young Madara had the same carefree speech, tone, and behavior that he usually displayed, today his eyes were sharper. Today he didn't come to be a tourist, today he came as a warrior, to fight. As the lecture kept going, which was just some basic exercises so he didn't put too much attention to it, he turned to Kira and curiously asked, "I see quite a number of boys here. I thought you would only teach girls." She shrugged just like him and replied, "If we can accept an outsider that is a boy to be here, why would we chase away our own?" He couldn't help but snort amused. Her behavior changed a bit since they met. It's almost like she is taking some of his mannerisms. After the lecture there was a series of spars between Kyoshi warriors, nothing extreme and certainly nothing dangerous, but it was enough for Madara to see their combat style. So, they mainly use their hands to attack and grapple, their legs are mainly for movement and stability, a very good style to specialize in using an opponent's strength and weight against them. After the spars were over, one of the Kyoshi warriors came to the center. "Thank you all for coming. I hope you all learned something new to help you improve yourselves." She slightly bowed her head. Proper etiquette was part of being a Kyoshi warrior after all. "But now we will have a final spar. Our visitor will fight with one of us 9. This will be a more serious spar, but I want to let everyone know that this won't be, by any means, lethal. You are welcome to stay and watch if you so desire." Many murmurs spread through the dojo. Only the 10 Kyoshi warriors and Oyaji knew about this spar, so everyone else was obviously shocked. Most of them already got used to Madara's presence on their daily lives and even stopped staring at him when he walked around the village. To think that the young boy would have a serious spar with a trained Kyoshi warrior. Madara was shocked, but by another reason. 9. "Won't you be the one to spar with me?" Kira just shook her head. "No, it wouldn't be appropriate for the leader to spar in this situation. I will be watching the fight to guarantee fairness and the safety of everyone." Madara snorted. "Will it be Fei Lan?" Kira raised one eyebrow. "You really don't like her, do you?" He just shrugged, and she chuckled. "No, it won't be Fei Lan, it will be Lana. She has been waiting for this since you arrived. She even calls you, little monster, when we talk about you." Now was Madara's turn to raise his eyebrow. "Oh. You talk about me?" Kira couldn't only leave an exasperated sigh. "Go." No one left the dojo. Even the little kids were excited to see a serious combat. It's not every day that a Kyoshi warrior displays their real skill after all. Once Madara stepped up, the young kids kept staring at him, especially young Suki. She was mesmerized by his appearance, long black spiky hair that reached below his shoulders with bangs that covered his black sharp eyes that made him look like a predator, long black robes that, together with his eyes and hair, contrasted with his pale skin. All in all, her first impression of him was of a strong and mysterious boy. Once he stepped up, his opponent also walked towards the center. Lana was another beauty among the Kyoshi warriors, long braided chestnut-colored hair tied in a low ponytail with bright blue eyes. When both of them were in the center, they bowed to each other in respect and at the exact same time assumed their combat positions 10 meters from one another. It was so well performed and synchronized that if someone didn't know, they would believe this was choreographed. But then, they just stopped moving. Seconds passed and no one moved. It was more like a stare down than actual spar. This made the girls and even Oyaji confused, but once he looked towards the other Kyoshi warriors he was shocked. They all had grim expressions on their faces. Others wouldn't notice minute details, but how wouldn't they? They are all martial arts masters. Regular untrained people would never notice it, but they could see it clearly as day. Lana's body moved slightly and Madara's body shifted in response right after in less than a fraction of a second. Every time Lana prepared a movement, Madara prepared a counter instantly. To the crowd they were just staring at each other as statues, but Lana already had a cold sweat running down her spine. Little monster. What a joke. This boy is a demon. Kira's expression was very grim as she looked at both of them, muttering to herself, his words weren't a bluff. If his skills are half as good as his reflexes and instincts, he could have really crippled us that day on the docks. The other 8 that were sitting in size a position beside her couldn't help but give a serious nod. I kept listening to the Agni Kai theme while writing this chapter, so I would recommend the readers to do the same while reading. Madara's presence changed since he assumed his position. his gaze, and the pressure he emanated was just like that day on the docks. Right now he isn't a transmigrated person with Madara's powers, right now he truly is Uchiha Madara. Not coming, eh? If that's the case, he stared at Lana's pretty blue eyes and displayed a sinister grin. Lana, right? Let's dance. In a fraction of a second his body shifted and dashed towards Lana with extreme speed. The girl manages to react but was half-second late. As soon as she moved to grab his arm, he already shifted his feet and landed a heavy blow to her gut with his knee. Tud. Saliva flows out of her mouth. She takes one step back to catch her breath but Madara isn't letting her. He jumps on a spinning kick aiming her head. She manages to block it but her posture was broken. The power of that kick made her feel her bones shaking. She grabs his ankle with her free hand, and since he is very light, she spins and throws him upwards with all her strength. She needed some time to recover her posture and creating a distance would help, that and having him on the air would making him an easy target. But what happened next made her feel despair. Madara did a backflip in the air and landed upside down on the ceiling. Time seemed to stop and she could see his predatory gaze fixed on her, a sinister bloodthirsty smile on his lips. Right after that he instantly dashed towards her again. He flipped on the air, using both his weight and the momentum gained, he landed a heavy axe kick on her right shoulder. Crack. Lana bit her lips feeling the pain. That arm is gone for the fight and every inch she moves it she feels a stinging pain. The spar continued. Madara didn't let her even seize initiative. It was a one-sided beatdown and she could only endure it. She is a Kyoshi warrior, she would never give up just like that. The other Kyoshi warriors were even more grim as the time passed. Some of them were closing her fists so hard that their hands were turning white. That's no boy, that's truly a demon in human skin, and he is only 9 years old. Lana could only try to defend with her knees and left arm. She couldn't muster a counterattack at all. Madara was relentless and merciless. He might not be fighting in a life-and-death battle considering how he aims to incapacitate her and not to kill, but it doesn't diminish the seriousness that he is putting in this fight. After a couple more minutes of combat Madara landed his knee on the side of her right thigh with his full strength. This time she couldn't help but let her pain out. Arg. Falling on one knee and without being able to use her right arm, she gives up her defenses and lunges a jab towards his face. Madara was startled by her sacrifice and couldn't react in time to dodge the blow completely, so he shifted his body and took the jab on his shoulder. Using the momentum of the blow he went for a final spin. Mid-spin his hands morphed from a close fist to stretched fingers. At that moment Kira's eyes widened staring at Madara's spear-like hand. He lunged his hand towards Lana's throat like a spear. Time slowed down. Lana could see that spear-like hand moving towards her throat. She had no way to avoid it or block it. If that hit lands, she is dead. Kira instantly starts to stand up trying to stop the spar but she is too slow and is too far away. Even saying stop would take too long and Lana would be a cold corpse by then. Everyone stopped breathing at the final moment of the spar, and when they thought it would be the end for the Kyoshi warrior, Madara just stopped his hand half-inch from her throat. It was dead silence, no one said a word. Even Kira was stuck on a half-standing-up position. That final attack was aiming to take a life. It was not a kind of attack that a 9-year-old could ever use, regardless of how talented and well-trained they were. Madara kept staring at her eyes for a couple seconds as he caught his breath, then he retracted his arm while nodding to her. He offered his hand to help her stand up and she accepted it absent-mindedly. Kira finally came back to her senses and shouted. The spar is over, Madara wins. No one could say a word, there was no cheer. There was only utter dread. This kid. Oyaji kept staring at Madara with his huge forehead covered in sweat. He didn't even use his bending and could already kill a seasoned Kyoshi warrior. He then looked at Lana. If he was a spy, he could have attacked us and we wouldn't even be able to react. I find it hard to believe anyone would dispatch someone like this just to spy on our small little island. He then muttered to himself, potential friend, huh? I pray that you are right, Kira, I truly do. Chapter 9, Final Preparations. Kira helped Lana to get to the healer's hut and led everyone else outside the dojo with the help of the other Kyoshi warriors, all of that while Madara sat on the ground to rest. His shoulder was hurting like crazy. That last strike he took really screwed him. If not for his final move he didn't know if he could keep fighting aggressively like that, and giving Lana the initiative wouldn't be different from admitting defeat. That woman is strong. To anyone watching the fight it seemed that it was a one-sided beatdown but he knew better. He had to spend 3 times more stamina than needed. His child body didn't have the same strength as a grown man. Every kick and every punch needed to be done with his full strength behind it, otherwise it would have no effect in battle whatsoever. Not only that, but during fight he felt something. He doesn't know what it was, and it was very faint, but he felt something weird with him. As someone who struggled to live during his previous life, he was more than used to dirty his hands with a few things. He never crossed certain lines because he was afraid of the consequences that would for sure come to bite him in the ass, but he was never a soft-hearted person. His goal was to survive, and if he had to play dirty to achieve that, he would, so he had no problem in fighting seriously or aim for the head. His thoughts were interrupted by Kira that came back and offered a water skin. He took it and gulped it in a few seconds. Phew, I needed that, thanks. You are welcome, she grinned. That was a nice fight, by the way, to think your small body could pack such punch. Hey, I resent that. Don't use the word small when talking about a man, unless you want that man to really dislike you. She laughed out loud. Well, tell me that after you grow up a bit, okay? This fucking bitch. His eye twitched and he let out a loud laugh together with her. Regardless of her teasing, he couldn't stay angry with her. So, what you think? Did I worsen my situation with your town? She shook her head. I believe that after this everyone will know that if you had bad intentions, you would have no issues in doing it, by the way. She pointed to his shoulder. You better get that checked. Madara loosed his robes a bit to reveal his right shoulder. A huge nasty purple mark spread through his skin. Ouch, she said with a sarcastic tone. Ouch indeed, that will hurt tomorrow, he replied. She turned her sarcastic grin on. That will hurt for at least 5 tomorrows. You know, you are this far from entering my Fei Lan list. He said with a deadpan voice, which she just laughed louder and louder. He got up and left the dojo with her on his tail. When he turned the corner of the street, he understood the saying, talk about the devil and he shall appear. But he is a fucking idiot, said a small 5-year-old boy looking at the Kyoshi warrior, Fei Lan, right in front of him, while all she did was to stare at the boy with an angry face. That seemed to be enough, and the boy lowered his head and walked away with her. Madara turned to Kira and asked, who's that? One of her victims. She chuckled and answered while shaking her head, no, that's Kilo, her son. She always doted on him like a little prince. He is spoiled to the core. Well, that was until someone showed up and taught him how to curse. Oh. Was all Madara could say. You finally understood, huh? She asked teasingly. Now everything makes sense. I can't even complain about the treatment anymore. She started to laugh out loud again, using her fingers to clean her tears. What's so funny? Asked Madara, annoyed. We had a bet about how long would it take for you to figure that out. She answered while still laughing. Some said a day, some said a week, some of us said never. What about you? He asked with a raised eyebrow. Until any of us told you about it, she said that with the most sunny, charming, and cute smile possible, that made Madara want to punch her face so damn hard. After that incident, Madara went to rest on his cabin, and look at that. That little bitch was right, it took him 5 days to get his shoulder better. After that he kept exploring the village and talking to the population. This time no one treated him badly. It seemed someone told them to treat him with respect, that he was no spy at all. Phew, finally. After the first couple weeks after the spar, Madara was called by Kira again, who offered him some sort of exchange for some fighting tips for her warriors. He wouldn't get paid in currency, because they wanted to keep their economy tight inside the island, but they would fetch goods for him directly if he wanted, and just like that Madara got his first job. He also taught some extra tips to the young girl group that watched the spar that day, especially Suki. He knew what she would become, so he went an extra mile to impart some extra fighting techniques to her. Huff. Madara, this is too much. I can't carry more weight. Your stamina is too low, Suki. You need to grow up and become the strongest of the Kyoshi warriors. He replied. Just a little break, pretty please, she said, doing her best puppy eyes technique on him. Sigh, all right, let's rest. And like that she dropped a big rock from her back and sat down under a tree with him, drinking water and resting her tiny body. You are from outside the island, right? She asked while she gulped her water. Yes, why? He said while taking a dumpling from his bag and started eating beside her. What can you tell me from the outside world? How people live there? Have you been to other nations? She was really curious about how things were outside Kyoshi Island. Other nations, huh? He leaned back on the tree and started thinking for a few seconds, then an evil scheming smile appeared on his face. I know quite a bit about the Southern Water Tribe. Oh. Tell me, she exclaimed excitedly. He pretended to be reluctant for a bit. Are you sure? I don't know if you will like it. Her cute blue eyes narrowed. What? Tell me. Sigh, it's. Well. The boys of the Southern Water Tribe believe that women aren't capable fighters, that they should accept being housewives and always bow their heads to their man's wishes. As expected, Suki got furious. That's stupid. They are all fucking idiots. For the first time, Madara was proud of spreading his sailor speech through this village. He gave her an understanding nod and continued, that's how they behave, even if they pretend to be understanding, is just to woo other girls, it's their culture after all. She was fuming. What a stupid fucking culture. If I encounter any of them, I will break their family jewels. He let out a loud laugh and patted her head. Good, young Suki. Good, he couldn't help but use a Palpatine-like voice. I hope you enjoy my gift, Sokka. He lifted his water skin to his mouth, pretending to drink water to hide his demon-like evil smile on his face. After a couple of months of tutoring young children and veteran Kyoshi warriors in different fighting styles, Madara went to Kira with a request. Can you take me to a blacksmith? I have some weapons that I want forged. She looked at him in confusion. You can just ask me any weapon and I will find you one. I know you like the katana, so I will just give you one. There's no need to get a new one forged. He shook his head. It's not a katana. I can't wield it properly. My body is too SMA-. He paused mid-sentence and coughed. Ahem. I don't have the proper body to wield one yet. The balance would be all wrong for me. She couldn't help but raise the corners of her mouth in a sarcastic and smug smirk. Gosh, Madara really wanted to punch her pretty face right now once again. All right, you can come with me then. I will take you there. Before we go, can you spare me some paper and charcoal? I want to draw the weapons that I want, he requested. Sure, she looked around the dojo for the items he asked and handed them back to him. Here. Thanks. He started sketching different shinobi weapons from the Naruto world. Kira never saw any of those weapons anywhere. That made her belief even more firm. He is definitely not from the Fire Nation. She guided him to the blacksmith and he presented his sketches. That made the poor old man scratch his head. What is this one? He asked with a raspy voice while pointing specifics. This one is a kunai. It needs to be this specific size. Don't forget the hole on the pommel, that's very important. It should be large enough to put a finger through it. I see. How about this one? How long do you need this thing to be? Madara stopped to think for a second. About 900 feet each. I want at least 30. The same goes for the kunais. I will need 30 of them. The old blacksmith nodded. Very well, it will take me over a month to finish this. This kunai is easy. The problem is this other one. To make it resistant and malleable, we will need to work on it for a while. Madara just grinned. No worries, old man. I have all the time in the world. Chapter 10. Title in the end. It's been roughly 4 months since Madara stepped in this island. He managed to achieve everything he wanted. He got his weapons ready. He expanded his training to other ninja arts from the Naruto world with his new weapons. He taught the veteran Kyoshi warriors and their future generation. Now it's time to get back on the road. Leaving his old black robes on top of his bed and started to dressing the new robes that the Kyoshi warriors gave him. The old one didn't fit him anymore. He asked for a specific design for his new robes. He wanted to keep his clothes in line with real Madara's style, but he also wanted to have his own touch as well. The new robes were a replica of Darth Maul's Sith robes. The only difference was instead of long black boots, it was long black shinobi sandals, and instead of tight sleeves around his forearms, it was a long loose kimono sleeves. It also had a small Uchiha symbol on the back, not too big, roughly resembling the one on Sasuke's first outfit on Shippuden. He also had a long black cloak, but instead of a hooded cloak he had one with a mesh of gray fur. The cloak was long, very long, that would drag on the floor when he walked. It was inspired by his favorite character from Castlevania animation, Trevor Belmont, and the cloak would fit him for many years to come. The Kyoshi gave him several different sizes of his robes. He believes that they will last until his growth spur hit, perhaps until 15 or 16 years old. Setting everything up, putting his hidden weapons inside his long kimono sleeves, he picks up his backpack and gives one last look at the little residence that housed him for almost half a year. It's dawn. There's a gentle warm breeze spreading through the island. The winter is over and it's springtime. Many people are just doing their daily chores, but there's a small crowd by the docks. Take care, Madara. If you need anything, just come back here, said Kira with a melancholic smile on her pretty face. Today she wasn't wearing her Kyoshi warrior outfit and paintings. She was wearing a simple green kimono that matched her shiny green eyes and contrasted her long loose red-brown hair. I will, Kira, and you keep those brats out of trouble. Suki have been very naughty recently, Madara said back. She just chuckled. almost half year and he didn't change a bit. She didn't want to keep talking about their farewells, so she changed subject when she saw him stepping on the boat that offered him passage to the mainland. "Couldn't you chose another color other than black?" she asked, displaying her classic sarcastic tone. "I could, but I felt you all would jump on my jugular if I requested red." They both laughed together one last time. "By the way, you never told me about that symbol on your robes. What does that mean?" she said as she passed a small envelope to him, which he quickly pocketed and placed inside his robes right before the boat start leaving the docks. "It's the symbol of my family, my clan, the Uchiha." She raised her voice as he got farther. "Uchiha? Never heard about them." He smirked at her and shouted back, "Oh, but one day you will." Turning to the horizon, he muttered to himself, "Surely one day you will." At the dock, she could only try her best to prevent the sadness from taking her as she saw Madara become a small dot on the horizon. "One day I will, huh? I will be waiting for it. Farewell for now, Madara Uchiha." She muttered to herself, but the other Kyoshi warriors by her side also heard it. What he didn't know was when he left the island, a small auburn-haired girl entered his old shack. Not seeing him, she just sighed with tearful eyes and silently grabbed his old black robes and left. It has been 6 months since Madara left Kyoshi Island. During this time he managed to strike rich. No, he didn't find gold mine or anything like that. Well, not exactly. What he found was several Fire Nation encampments all around the southeastern corner of the Earth Kingdom and robbed them blind. If no one spotted him, he would just take the money and valuable items and leave. If he was spotted even by one person, he did what any sensible person on his situation would do. He would erase the witnesses and loot the whole camp if possible. He usually focused on small 5-man encampments. He didn't want to risk himself for money. No one alive knew who was doing it, but he earned a reputation and a title for himself. The tales of the greedy ghost were spreading through the nearby villages and towns. He had his own hideout somewhere in the foggy swamp, southwest of the Si Wong Desert, where he dumped all his earnings. Right now he had quite a decent pile of golden tails, and a few bags of coins from all different tribes. There were also bags with many different resources that the Fire Nation so kindly donated to him. It was midnight with a full moon shining bright on the sky, gentle moonlight illuminating the jungle through the canopy of huge trees that spread as far as one's eye could see. The foggy swamp was silent like a graveyard tonight, maintaining its creepy atmosphere. That was until the shadow of young Boi dressed in black robes flew through the tree branches. Madara's black robes were stained with blood, but there was not a single cut on them. Behind him, a platoon of 30 Fire Nation solders chased him, shooting wave after wave of fire, led by an old firebender captain named Zhang. How he knew? Well, he heard rumors about a platoon of solders formed to hunt down and capture the greedy ghost that was costing the Fire Nation so many resources, led by a veteran firebender that distinguished himself during the 100-year war. Let's cue some music. Since last battle we used Agni Kai, this time let's go for an OG Naturo soundtrack. Play Naruto OST 3, Beautiful Green Wild Beast. Play it on a loop if needed. LOL. Stop the ghost. Fire at him. Madara smirked and united both fists in front of his chest. The once he separated his fists from one another, a distinct sound could be heard. Zitsitsi. Jumping between trees, doing a 900-degree spin like a small tornado, he spread 7 kunais in all directions. Zzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzz trees. When the soldiers arrived, they opened fire once again instantly, not paying attention to the wires that were slightly illuminated by the moonlight. Fireball after fireball rained down towards Madara as he kept dodging between trees, until all of them were roughly on the spot he prepared. Captain Zhang's eyes were following Madara like a hawk. He kept his cool during the whole chase, but got confused when Madara suddenly stopped moving further and jumped from a high tree branch to seemingly nowhere. Then his eyes went wide when the boy in black started running on the air. What? Madara suddenly changed direction again, jumping towards another empty space. He was moving even faster now. They could only see a blur. He was truly like a ghost. The soldiers were dispersed looking around looking for his location, when out of nowhere a pained shout was heard. Arg! The soldiers looked back to see one of their own with blood spurting from their neck, and a weird metal knife lodged on his flesh. Before they could react, the knife seemed to move on its own and moved back towards between the tree leaves. What was that? Argh my eye, another one. Ugh, my knee. And another one. Arg. Blurg. One after the other Fire Nation soldiers fell on the ground either severely hurt or dead. The captain noticed he lost at least 10 good men in seconds and shouted. Block formation. The ones in the back will support the ones on the front. The soldiers moved as instructed, and they finally saw a blur moving between trees again. The captain lost his cool and shouted, "Fire him down now." As the soldiers were about to shoot a massive wave of fire, metal wires came out of nowhere. Zzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzzz his arm towards his comrades that were in a straight line, with their backs turned towards him. ROAR. The massive fire wave of that soldier swallowed at least 5 others, and just like that their numbers halved from the initial 30. I can feel it. Madara muttered wide-eyed as he jumped between wires, his smile getting more and more sinister. What the? As the captain and the remaining soldiers turned towards the traitor, the ankles of 2 soldiers in the front got wrapped by steel wires, the wires were pulled and both fell on the ground with a heavy thud right before a small wave of 5 kunai flew towards the unprotected soldiers on the back. Now it was just 10. "See circle formation around me," shouted the captain in panic. The soldiers moved again, they trembled inside their armors. "The ghost will kill us all." All of a sudden a kunai flew from between the trees twice as fast and lodged itself on a soldier's chest. He survived with no heavy damage due to his armor, but then he saw a thick black liquid with a recognizable smell all over the kunai and even the wire. "Oh, oil." What?" said the captain in panic. ROAR. All the soldier could see a bright flash of orange light as a massive wave of fire flew through the wire and reached the group of soldiers. The targeted soldier and the 4 beside him were swallowed by fire. Ha 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 ha, I did it. I finally fucking did it. A maniacal laugh echoed through the foggy swamp. What kind of monster? The captain couldn't give orders anymore, only 4 soldiers left with extremely low morale and the ghost already cleaned 25, they were sitting ducks at this point. "Thank you for helping me, Fire Nation soldiers." Madara's maniacal voice echoed through. The 5 remaining kept looking around with dread in their eyes, trying to at least see who is the reaper that will claim their lives. "I hope you gave your farewells to your wives and children, tonight no one leaves this place." All 4 looked up to see Madara crouching on top of a tree, staring at them like a predator with a demonic smile on his face. Demon. That was all that the captain could say when he saw those bright blood-red eyes glowing in the darkness staring at him. Chapter 11, Beifong. Madara was silently standing in front of a pile of corpses, staring at each one of them with a neutral expression and his Sharingan glowing red in the dark, some scorched, some mutilated and some with a precise cut on their arteries. Those didn't suffer much. He was considering the information that he got from Captain Zhang, the only middle-aged man on the platoon. How did he get information out of them? Well, by false promises of living, of course. He is no Kyoshi warrior, he won't follow his word in every situation. Not only that, who will tell the others about it? Not a single soul, heh. So, they already started the early preparations for the siege of Ba Sing Se, huh? Not only that, it seems that I became quite a high-profile target now. Is better to retire the greedy ghost persona and stop my looting. I don't need more money, and even if I did, I wouldn't risk it anymore. This was only the first of the many waves of problems that I would have to endure if I keep doing this. Walking around and collecting the kunai lodged on the soldiers' corpses, he can only sigh. I really wished that there was a way to create storage seals in this world. Carrying only 30 kunai is too few, but having too many of them will not only restrict my movements, will also weight a lot on my body. Cleaning his forehead sweat with the sleeve of his kimono, this was tiresome but nowhere nearly as demanding as my duel with Lana. It just proves that one Kyoshi warriors is way more dangerous than a platoon of Fire Nation clowns. These people are the stormtroopers of the Avatar world after all. Looking around the huge trees surrounding the massacre site, he could only let out an exasperated sigh. Now to collect all these kunai and wires back. Damn, they don't tell you that detail on Naruto, do they? For fuck's sake. As he kept thinking with his head low, seemingly looking at the dead, a muffled sound, almost imperceptible, reaches his ear. Crack. Madara spins without thinking twice, sending 2 waves, of 5 kunai each, towards the general direction of the sound. Mid-travel, the second wave hits all the kunai on the first wave, making them change direction. Ting, 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 ting. The kunai with wires attached travels through the swamp. The wires rotate around tree branches and trunks, shifting their trajectory slightly once again. That's when he hears a male voice from behind the trees, roughly 600 feet away from him. What the? Ugh, that male voice again, surprised this time. Keeping one arm fully stretched with many metal wires wrapped around his fingers, he quickly pulls them. I can't move. The voice is still low and muffled, but Madara can now feel the fear of that person. It was a very muffled voice, but he heard it. He didn't know who it was. He didn't change his original posture. Hell, Madara managed to do all that while still staring at the bodies while contemplating something. It seems I caught a little rat. He grins and slowly turns around, and with his other hand he throws a single kunai. The wire seemed to come out from inside his sleeve. The kunai traveled in fast speed towards the target, but when Madara's Sharingan captured a single tiny detail of this rat's clothes, his pinky moved in a circular manner and extremely fast, sending a wave through the wire that slightly changed the direction of the kunai. TUD. The kunai sinks on a tree trunk, one side of the blade dripping blood that shined like rubies under the moonlight. YELP, the sound echoes through the eerie silent swamp. Madara slowly walks towards the source of the sound in slow and steady steps, until he finally manages to see a man hanging a few inches from the ground, with his limbs in X position, having metal wires wrapped around each one of them, and another metal wire around his neck. Good evening, my little rat friend. The man looked like to be mid-20s, had a long blackish-brown hair tied on a low ponytail and no bangs. He also had a slightly deep cut on his left cheek with the blood still flowing out. The man felt dread when he saw those glowing red eyes staring at him, as if they were ready to claim his soul and send it to eternal damnation. Gulp, hello there dash. He got interrupted when Madara pulled on of his fingers a tiny little bit more and the wire around his throat tightened. Tell me, rat, why are you spying on me? He grinned sinisterly. Do you want to dance too? The man mustered all his will to shake his head from one side to the other, answering on a raspy voice due to the wire around his throat. Sir Ghost. Sir. Oh. It seems you know a bit too much for my liking. It's better to settle your permanent residence here then. The man's body shook. NNOP please. I was sent to find you. Madara raised a snarky smirk. Oh yeah. So were they. He said, looking over his shoulder towards the pile of corpses a few hundred feet away. The man was sweating buckets at this point. He was so afraid of his possible outcome that even the nasty cut on his cheek made him feel pain. J just listen, P please, I was sent by Master Beifongs to find you, he yelled. Madara was surprised, raising one of his eyebrows. Master Beifongs. As in? Lao Beifong. Do you know about the patriarch of Beifong family? Asked the man shocked. The Beifong family was very high profile, yes, but the name of the patriarch was only known by people of the high society. Madara got a bit pissed and pulled his fingers a tiny bit again. Answer the damn question, rat. Why yes, it's Master Lao Beifong, he yelled the top of his lungs. Madara nodded. And what does the esteemed patriarch of the Beifong family wants? He said he had a deal for you. That you wouldn't regret. Madara could only smirk. Would you look at that, when God closes a door, he truly opens a window. He nodded. All right then, you will live. For now, moving his hand he loosened the wires tying the man. He went on his knees and coughed for a whole minute before calming down. Do you believe me? Just like that. Madara pointed to the flying boar sigil on the man's robes. That is the sigil of the Beifong family. I just didn't know your intentions, if you didn't have that sigil on you. Quickly pulling his other hand and another kunai flew back to his grasp. This one was partially stained in blood. It wouldn't be just a cut on your cheek. The poor man could only thank his wife for demanding that he wore his best robes when doing this job. She said he needed to display the elegance of the Beifong family when dealing with other people. That woman is a genius. I will send her for a whole week spa on the hot springs free of charge. Madara turned around. All right, let's go. The man was confused, but... Mr. Ghost sir, Gaoling is the other way. Who said anything about going to Gaoling? It's time to collect my weapons back. The man saw enlightenment. Oh. I see you will collect your things before going. Madara snorted. I won't be doing a thing. He tossed the man a small bag. You are, now go. Chop chop, we can't let Lao Beifong waiting, can we? He said with a charming smile, but all the men could see was a devil smirk. Gulp. As time passed, the poor man had to climb trees, walk on muddy waters and crouch under bushes to recover all his kunai and wires. He couldn't stop sweating, feeling Madara's blood-red eyes staring on his back all the time. Madara, on the other hand, was confused. This man's face and voice, he saw it before, it was way too familiar. "Hey," he shouted. The man trembled and straightened his posture. "Why, yes. Your face looks familiar and I seem to recognize your voice. Have I threatened you before?" asked Madara with a curious and suspicious gaze. "And no, sir. This is the first time we've ever met, Mr. Ghost, sir." Madara could only nod. "Okay, go on." Time passed and all the kunai and wires were already inside the pouch that was handed back to him. That's when something in Madara's head clicked and his eyes widened. "This man, he looks and sounds a lot like Jackie Chan." He couldn't help but grin. "All right, Mr. Ghost, everything is properly recovered. Shall we go to Gaoling now?" Madara shook his head. No. I have many things in my hideout. If I'm leaving the swamp, I'm taking all of it with me. Come, follow me, this way, Jackie." The men could only follow, but, "Yes, sir, my name is Lei." Madara just shrugged. "Whatever you say, Jackie, let's quicken the pace. Can't keep your beloved master Beifong waiting." And just like that, poor Lei became a pack mule, carrying all of Madara's loot for miles. The poor man's legs were already trembling and sore when they finally arrived at the Beifong estate. It took them a week to reach there by foot. Madara didn't have a problem with the idea of bringing his loot here. The Beifongs were filthy rich. They wouldn't bother about some petty pocket changes that consisted his full wealth. To them, what he earned in half year was less than their daily profit. He was well received. First they led him to a guest house, or at least that's what they called it, for him though. This was a fucking palace. God fucking damn it. Who said that money can't buy happiness? Shoot that guy. After taking a shower and putting on clean robes, he was led to the main building of the Beifong estate. He had to admit, this place was a work of art. It felt like a Xianxia clan house, perfect gardens, beautifully decorated koi ponds, all so clean and sparkly that it felt like another world for him. The maids led Madara towards the office where Lao Beifong would receive him. Once they reached the door, they heard a youthful but imposing voice. "Come in." The servants left and Madara stepped inside the office. Okay, now these people are just showing off. Rolls and rolls of scrolls on bookshelves that not only had extremely detailed carvings, but also had gold ornaments as extra details, a long desk with piles of documents and gold teals, many shelves made of carved wood with golden handles behind the comfiest looking sofa chair ever, and the fanciest fucking rug he ever saw in his life. Are these threads made of gold? Madara calmed himself and walked towards the desk. Behind it sat a man with brown eyes and a long black hair. It seems he still uses a youngster hairstyle. Well, he should be roughly 20 years now, give or take. The man had a slightly tanned skin. He wore long palace robes in shades of yellow and gold, with some green details here and there. "Hello there, Mr. Greedy Ghost, welcome to my humble estate." Madara could only use his full willpower to not roll his eyes at that comment. This fucking prick. Taking a deep breath, he sat down facing Lao Beifong. "Madara, my name is Madara." "Oh. So, it's Mr. Madara then. Or do you have a family name?" Madara could only stop a few seconds to consider if he should openly say about his family. It was a big deal in the Avatar world. After all, you could count on one's fingers how many characters had a family name. "Uchiha," was all he said. "Very well then, Mr. Uchiha. I sent one of my servants to find you in the foggy swamp a few weeks ago. Honestly, I thought that he would take way longer." Madara could only shrug. There was a small party happening in the swamps the night that Jackie showed up. I think he just followed the sounds. "Jackie?" Lao raised one eyebrow but quickly dismissed it. "Anyway, as you should already know, the Fire Nation is on your tail. Your bounty was set for 200 gold taels for anyone that could lead them to you. Not only that, they are searching every village and town on the southeast side of the Earth Kingdom for you. In a month at most they will make a perfect barricade around the area to trap you inside." Madara was rather surprised, not at the Fire Nation's action because he already considered that possibility, but at the Lao Beifong's intelligence gathering and what I'm here for. "I honestly doubt that you would go through so lengths for merely 200 gold taels." Lao could only smirk. "You are right, we don't need to spend that much time and effort for such tiny amount, but I consider you way more valuable than the gold they offer. You see, Mr. Uchiha, the Fire Nation had plans that were slightly pushed back by your actions. They won't accept that at all. If captured, you will serve as deterrence and example to the population. You know what I mean, right? Public execution." Madara said understandingly. Lao nodded. You are a smart young man, Mr. Uchiha, although others might see you as a young boy. Me along anyone that resides on the top of their respective fields can see what's below the surface. You are a good future investment and we the Beifongs have an offer for you. You will be obviously well paid for your assistance and we will provide something that no one else can, a trustworthy alibi. Madara nodded, I'm listening. Lao smirked, tell me Mr. Uchiha, how good are you in doing business? Madara smirked back, oh, you have no idea. Chapter 12, Contract. The room was brightly lit, although it was dark and cold outside. The candles and braziers inside the room kept a good warm atmosphere as Madara and Lao stared at each other. I want to employ your services to work for the Beifong family for the foreseeable future, what do you think? Asked Lao with a classic merchant smile. Interesting, said Madara leaning back on his chair, maintaining silence for at least half a minute. Now this became a battlefield, and Madara won't accept defeat here. Everything can be used to gain advantages, even silence. Lao waited but didn't get any response. Instead, he kept the silence going. He knew exactly what Madara was trying to do. Madara kept staring at Lao, then suddenly the corners of his mouth curled up in a smirk. You gotta be more specific than that if you want to do business with me, Mr. Beifong. Lao closed his eyes and rubbed his chin. I want to hire you to work under my instructions. The period may vary. There are many things that someone with your skills can be put to a good use, and many of our projects and goals will take an undetermined amount of time. Madara chuckled, what a lovely way to say a lot and explain nothing at the same time. Lao shrugged, it's part of being a Beifong, but since I value you that much, let's see. I would offer you a 10-year contract, but judging by your expression you wouldn't accept, so let's settle for 8 years. Shaking his head, Madara replied, 3 years it's my limit, Mr. Beifong. Chuckling, Lao replied, now you are driving a hard bargain, Mr. Uchiha. 3 years is the same as nothing. Very few of our projects can be done in such amount of time, if any. 7 years is the standard time in the Earth Kingdom. We can work with that, right? It's not like you can find a better place that will hire you. Others will only see you as a 10-year-old boy, and I doubt anyone can pay nearly 10% of the wage I will be giving you. Madara suddenly grins as he stares at Lao. Not really, Mr. Beifong. You see, someone with my talents have the whole world available to them, even if I won't be paid as much. It's not like I will lack opportunities. You see, Mr. Beifong, there's something that I am 100% sure that your intelligence network didn't manage to discover about me. Lao's raised one of his eyebrows, as Madara extended one finger and a small flame ignited on top of his fingertip. I am a firebender, so I will say it again. 3 years, what's going to be, Mr. Beifong? The gears inside Lao Beifong's head were turning at Mach speed. In not a single report about the greedy ghost there was anything related to him being a firebender. In fact, everyone, Lao included, believed that Madara was just someone with superb unique martial arts, which was the reason why Lao wanted to hire him in the first place. If on top of his martial arts skills he also had an equal level of proficiency with firebending, his value just soared. Narrowing his eyes, Lao puts Madara in check. 5 years and I will double your pay. Believe me, Mr. Uchiha, this is the best contract ever made in the Four Nation for the past 300 years. Now it was Madara's turn to narrow his eyes. Oh really? Then let's break that record. He took an envelope from his robes and handed to Lao Beifong, who was curious. After opening and reading it, Lao frowned. To think that you taught the Kyoshi warriors and even got a letter of recommendation signed by all of them. You truly know how to do business, Mr. Uchiha. Madara grinned. That was the letter that Kira handed to him when he was leaving the island that day. He knew it would come in clutch. Same offer. Also, I will add a temporary residence inside the estate for you. We will also offer you resources in case you need it. You won't have to pay for food, drinks, even your clothes will be on us for the duration of the contract, and we will have a dedicated location for your firebending practices away from prying eyes. Now it was Madara's turn to frown. He wanted a 3-year contract. He wouldn't have much free time if it was longer than that, but Lao's offer, that was not something that he could simply deny. No one would. Are you kidding me? The silence remained. I also want permission to leave the estate for a specific amount of time. I hope that you can sponsor it for me. If you agree, then we have a deal related to the duration of the contract. Lao wasn't amused. You will need more specific than that. How many leaves you want, what type of sponsorship you want, and how long will you be away? Madara stopped to think for a bit, then he raised 2 fingers. 2 leaves. The first one, it's just a fetch trip. I will require a ship and a crew. It should take a couple weeks at most. If it's just a fetch trip, you don't have to go. Give me the specifics and I will send my people to retrieve whatever you want to retrieve, said Lao. Shaking his head, Madara replied, "Won't be possible unless they can climb up the Potala Mountains and reach the Southern Air Temple." Lao was shocked. "You want to go to that abandoned place? And can you even climb up there?" Madara smirked, "Of course I can. I was the one that left that thing up there in the first place." Then there was silence again, but this time Lao broke it quite fast. "Sounds fair. What about the second one?" "Si Wong Desert." Lao raised his voice. "What? You want to go to that lawless place? For what?" "There's an interesting library there that I really want to visit." Madara grinned. "This trip should take roughly 2 months though, and you don't have to lend me a crew. Resources would be welcome though. If you want books we can get them for you. There's no need to waste 2 months in a trip." Shaking his head, Madara replied, "No, you can't. These are my terms, Mr. Beifong. The ball is in your court." Lao narrowed his eyes. "If you disappear after going towards the desert and break the contract, I will release your information to the Fire Nation. You better not try to trick me, Mr. Uchiha." Madara just shrugged. "I don't plan to. Only an idiot would cross the Beifong family without an equally scary background, and I can be many things but an idiot I am not." Lao nodded. Although Madara kept his firebending secret, Lao had 100% sure that he didn't have a background to support him. If he had, he wouldn't be in his current situation. "Now that we settled the terms of the duration, let's talk about your obligations. I will protect this place with the best of my capabilities, but I won't accept to be sent as an envoy or assassin to do dirty jobs. I will teach your people some of my martial arts, but not all of them. Believe me, they will be twice as strong when I'm done with them. At least they won't be cannon fodder like those Fire Nation soldiers that came to annoy me during my stay in the swamp." Gulp. Lao could only stare wide-eyed at Madara's proclamation. "Those soldiers are considered cannon fodder. They go to the Fire Nation Academy for half a decade to learn the art of battle." But then Madara continued, "Of course I am open to side jobs, but let me tell you right here and right now, if you request me to be a bodyguard outside the city of Gaoling or play babysitter, I will charge 50% extra on top of my wage. How does that sound?" Lao could feel a cold sweat running down the back of his neck. How did he know? A sinister grin appeared on Madara's lips. "So how about that, deal?" Lao could only nod. "Deal. About my payment. 10 gold taels a day. Sounds fair. Wait, what? How much?" The contract was signed by both parties. Madara was incredibly satisfied with the end results. Yes, he would have to stay here for longer than he had planned, but at least he would live like a king and be paid like a god. As for his future plans, all they needed was to be adjusted to his new time frame. Nothing too serious, since one of his goals was to work for the Beifongs in the first place. That was the reason why he requested that letter to begin with. As he walked out of Lao's office, a demonic smile appeared on his face, all according to the Kikaku. Lao Beifong could only stare at the back of the 10-year-old boy walking out of his office while thinking, what the hell are they feeding kids these days? Chapter 13, Cannon Fodder. Roughly a week after his contract with the Beifongs were signed, Madara could be seen walking towards the main residence of the estate. He was wearing the new robes that the Beifongs ordered for him. At first Lao wanted him to keep the color scheme of the robes in touch with his families, but all that took was Madara to say, well, that wasn't part of the contract. Madara was wearing robes very similar to his old Darth Maul-inspired ones. The difference is that the inner layer of robes was red with silver embroidery details. The outer robes were still black but made of top-quality fabric. The Uchiha symbol on his back was professionally made this time. He also had shin guards similar to the Akatsuki's uniform, but instead of white it was made of black leather. Attached to his leather belt was a fancy red string which's other end was tied to a small token that carried the Beifong family sigil. That part Lao demanded and Madara shrugged. It didn't bother him. During the past week Madara interacted with the Beifong family a lot. He met Poppy Beifong, Lao's wife, and also, he met the 4-year-old Toph, and considering her behavior he believed that she hasn't learned earthbending from the badger moles yet. "Hello there, Mr. and Mrs. Beifong. You look lovely today. I think it's the new hairstyle." He lied through his teeth. That hairstyle was very traditional but just made her look like she had a big head, regardless who would say such things to the wife of their boss. But then a childish voice came from below. "Madara," said the young Toph, trying to locate him. He chuckled and walked towards her and patted her head. "You look great too, little midget." Poppy Beifong's eyes twitched. She didn't like how Madara behaved informally with Toph, and she didn't like how Toph changed from her quiet and silent personality around him either. She tried to talk to her husband many times, but Lao told her that it was good for Toph to have someone closer to her age to talk to. He hasn't been fully smitten by his control freak of a wife yet. Lao, wanting to prevent any sort of conflict between parties, coughed. Ahem, Mr. Uchiha, today is the first day that you will be teaching the Beifong guards. Although you are a master of your own right, you are still, well, a 10-year-old boy in their eyes. It may become rather tricky for you to control them. Do you want me to send a missive and personally order them to behave? Madara grinned. Nah, that won't be necessary. If they behave badly, I will carve subordination in their bones. He let out a wicked chuckle that made the Beifong couple sweat a bit. Toph, on the other hand, grinned behind her mother, and no one saw it. Sigh, I trust you, but at least let me send you an assistant. It won't be someone that will get in your way, you have my word. You seem to have acquainted yourself with Lei. He will be under your orders for the duration of the contract. How about that? Oh. Well, if it's Jackie then it's fine. He seems like a fun guy to be around, but let me tell you beforehand, Mr. Beifong, I will train them for war. Many will want to quit, but if only 1 out of 10 endure, you will have the best guards available in the 4 nations, discounting the Fire Lords and Earth Kings. I can't do that much in such limited time, I hope you understand. Lao nodded. Do what you must, just don't kill them. I don't want the tales of a monster that is killing Beifong guards to appear. It would ruin our prestige. Madara turned away and walked towards the training square. I can only promise to do my best in that regard. Please send Jackie to the training grounds. Lao could only sigh. Since when I became an errand boy? He chuckled. This kid got balls. Poppy wasn't amused. Are you going to let him talk to you like that? He is the servant, not you. And look at how he behaves with little Toph. He is a hooligan that will teach her bad manners. Damn you, Madara. Was all that Lao could think at this moment. Toph, on the other hand, did her best to prevent a smirk from forming on her cute chubby face. Heh. Madara walked through the estate. All the servants that saw him bowed their heads a little. They didn't know who he was, but to get a house inside the estate and being sponsored so much by Master Beifong means that he was special in some way. As he arrived on the training grounds, he did a quick scan. The place resembled the tournament square from the Dragon Ball series, and a bunch of young men were already talking to each other. Today they heard that they will be training under a martial arts master, and they were obviously curious about it. Madara kept watching their behavior when he heard hasty footsteps behind him. When he turned, he saw good old Jackie, I mean Lei, arriving in a hurry. Mr. Uchiha, I came as soon as I was given the order. I shall be under your command from this day forth. He said, bowing his head, but his voice was loud enough to attract attention. Everyone turned to both of them, and when they saw young Madara they raised their eyebrows. What the hell? Is that boy our instructor? It can't be right, he looks more like a noble. Madara turned towards the crowd and walked steady steps towards them, stopping 10 feet away while crossing his arms. His eyes narrowed and the air around the training ground got heavy. Attention, you useless bastards, he shouted. Formation. Now. Everyone hurriedly ran and stood 5 feet from one another with their backs straightened. All they could think is, what the actual fuck? I was hired by Mr. Lao Beifong to teach you all to fight properly. His gaze scanned every single one of them. Once they felt their gaze on them, a cold sweat ran down their spine. I will twist your insides until they bleed. I will grind your muscles until they shatter. And when I'm done with you, you will become fucking experts or die trying. Gulp. Madara walked towards one of the men in the front. This one had hazel eyes and messy light brown short hair. What is your name, scrub? Gon, sir. Gon. Gon, he said again. Tell me, Gon, what is your profession? We are guards of Beifongs. Tud. Blurg. He was interrupted by a heavy blow to the gut. Everyone looked towards him and saw Madara's elbow sunk on his gut, and the poor guy fell on his knees, completely out of commission. You are no guard. Your current profession is cannon fodder, said Madara as he retracted his arm and went back to his crossed arm position. And you will remain that way until this training is complete. I might be a 10-year-old, but I killed more men than any of you met in your whole lives. He was talking about Madara's past experience added to his own. I trained girls that could beat all of you black and blue alone, and bend your bodies, twisting you like pretzels. What the hell is a pretzel? Sounds scary. Shut up, leave my thoughts, you idiot. LOL. Sir, I don't T-dash. ZZIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIIII caught his throat wrapped on metal wire. You didn't ask for permission to talk, you will learn how to behave or you will go back to your homes tonight with your arms replaced by your legs, am I fucking clear? Yes, sir. A loud chorus of voices echoed through the Beifong estate. Now you fucking useless dogs, before learning how to beat someone you first need to learn how to take a beating. Everyone in pairs now, the guards quickly moved and found their pairs. I want you exchanging punches, no need to defend, aim for the gut and use your full strength. The first 5 that falls down will accompany Mr. Gon tonight, being tied to those poles until dawn, he said while pointing towards the many carved stone columns that decorated the training area. After that he walked back to his initial place. Very smart, sir. That way they will train their pain endurance, said Lei with a classical bootlicking tone. What the hell are you talking about? Asked Madara. Isn't that the goal of this exercise? Of course not, I just want them to bleed for the day. If they can muster the proper will to come back tomorrow, then I will train them for real. There's no point in training those who aren't cut for the job. I see. By the way, Jackie, what the fuck are you doing here? I came under Master Beifongs' orders to be your assistant, sir. Said Lei nervously. Madara shook his head. No, that's not what I'm talking about. What are you doing here? He pointed to the precise location they were standing. Take those fancy-ass robes off and go join the group. But sir. You are under my command, Jackie, and I am telling you to go and join the damn group. This is an order and all I want to hear from you is, yes sir, are we clear? Why yes sir. Lei was almost crying at this point. He took his fancy robes off and walked towards the group reluctantly. Faster, Jackie! Shouted Madara. Why yes, he started running, god damn it. His wife just got back from the spa and was so happy and glowing that she promised to give him the treat of his life tonight, if he is among the first 5 to fall down. At the thought a dangerous light glowed in Lei's narrowed eyes. Not a chance. Madara hummed as he watched the crowd of grown-up men beating the shit out of one another. Obviously Jackie wasn't the only one that had plans for tonight and no one wanted to be tied up for a wild night with blue balls as an extra adornment. What no one saw was that in one of the cabins nearby a young Toph was playing with her toys. Well, at least that's what she told her parents while claiming that having some fresh air would make her day more comfortable. Her parents didn't see any issue since she wouldn't be leaving the estate and sent maids to accompany her. Right now, she was pretending to play with wooden toys while the maids kept patrolling the perimeter of the cabin, but she could hear what was happening on the training grounds perfectly. A sinister grin appeared on her cute chubby face as she started giggling. The maids just assumed she was very happy and entertained with her toys, of course. Chapter 14, Properly Handling Criminals. It was a lovely first day of work for Madara. He spent his whole day sitting under the shade drinking expensive cold drinks and watching grown men beating the shit out of one another until sunset. The only disappointment was that he couldn't tie people upside down on the columns as he wanted. Mr. Beifong intervened and prevented it from happening. What a party pooper, so he just tied them regularly with his wires without any issue. They were out cold after all. But Madara was actually shocked by Lei's endurance and strength. It was like he was fighting against the world on his own and outlasted everyone even though he could barely walk back home. It seems I underestimated you, Jackie. You just earned my respect today. He could feel a cold breeze passing through him as he walked towards a secluded location right outside the Beifong estate. The warm setting sun illuminated the roofs of Gaoling like jewels. It was a beautiful city. Walking further from the estate he saw a huge hollow mountain. This wasn't here when I arrived. It seems Lao called some earthbenders to build me a training area. What a thoughtful bastard. He walked through huge metal gates and pulled a lever nearby that closed them, taking his robes until he was only left with his pants on. He found some shelves and made good use of them. Walking towards the main area he found a place very similar to the Beifong estate training area, a large arena that looked a lot like the ones in Dragon Ball tournaments. It seems that everything a Beifong does needs to be grand. Is he compensating for something? Snorting he swaggered his way to the center and sat down. My chi pool stopped increasing after I became 10. It seems that in this world there's only a very tight time frame in which someone's chi pool keeps expanding naturally. That explains a lot about a lot of things. He took a deep breath. My Sharingan only activated that night because I can assume that was the moment that my Kai pool stopped increasing. It was 15 days ago, which means that I turned 10 exactly 15 days ago. I now know my biological birthday, although I don't know which day is today because I never cared, but I can ask for information after this training. Focusing on his hands in front of one another ahead of his chest, he willed it and a flame appeared. He narrowed his eyes and increased his concentration. Now come on, let's try to achieve that beautiful blue fire. Minutes became hours and he failed in achieving the blue fire. His first theory was that Azula spent twice or thrice the amount of chi to intensify her flames and he tried just that, but that only made the flame go bigger. He was lacking something. Even the best firebending method he got didn't teach him the fire because the amount of chi required for the blue flames was absurd. He wonders how many before Azula could do it. He never heard of any avatar doing it, so it must be a very rare trait to have a huge chi pool. I will work around that. My plan is to spend my next year coming here every day after work to master firebending entirely, then go back to the Southern Air Temple to fetch my gunbai, and once I'm back here, he grinned, it will be lightning time, baby. From that day on he kept the same regime. He woke up at dawn, he trained the soldiers until they could barely walk before sending them back home. Many decided to quit but most of them stayed, which shocked Madara a bit. His training was borderline torture but those blokes endured it without crying, well, at least in front of him. During this time, he also spent quite some time with little Toph, who's already displaying her rebel personality when alone with Madara. "This place sucks," a childish female shout echoed through the little gazebo in the middle of a huge koi pond. "It's not that bad, little midget. I had to live on fruits and birds for a whole year, and after that I had to survive in the wilds for half a year, hiding in the foggy swamp eating things you don't want to know to satisfy my hunger," said a less childish male voice in a soothing tone. Yes, these were Toph and Madara having one of their secret meetings during the evenings. It needs quotes because Madara was upfront with Lao, who was actually very open and receptive about the idea, and even went a step further and prevented his wife from discovering. After spending quite some time with Madara he was already regretting certain choices in life. Well, at least now he might not end up like a whipped simp. "It's not fair. They treat me like I'm a porcelain doll just because I'm blind," complained little Toph. "Well, you indeed are blind, but I do disagree with how they treat you, well, at least how your mother treats you," said Madara. He was trying to make Toph not hate her father like in canon. He might be a pretentious bastard, but he was lovable pretentious bastard. "Only you understand me, Madara. I don't know how I would have endured this without you around," she said, sulking. That triggered a red alarm inside his brain. If he stays around for too long, Toph might not try to run away, and if she doesn't, she won't be able to learn earthbending from the badger moles. Luckily my trip towards the Potala Mountains will give her the push to run away from home. If 2 weeks is not enough, I can only rush to the desert and take my 2 leaves back to back so she can follow her canon route. "It's not hard to understand you, or do you think I can't see your smirk when I make grown men cry?" he asked while chuckling. Toph grinned. "That's how it needs to be done. You beat the shit out of them and one day I will do the same." Madara patted her head gently. "Yes, make me proud, little midget." But she slapped his hand. "Don't pat my head, I'm not a dear dog," she pouted and crossed her arms. I, whatever you say," he said softly while patting her head once again. This time she didn't stop him. After that night Madara kept his part of the bargain. He trained soldiers daily, took no day-offs and trained on his own. During his stay in the Beifong estate he stopped 2 abduction operations against little Toph and 1 assassination attempt on Lao Beifong's life, which earned him the full trust of the patriarch of the Beifong family. Well, except the big head, she still disliked him very much. After a year of work Madara was walking towards the gates. His crew was waiting for him, and even Lao himself showed up to see him off with little Toph, who was doing her hardest to not cry at this point. Tough earthbender or not, Madara became her big brother and she didn't want him gone. She would feel lonely and trapped again. "Be safe, Madara," said Lao. Since the assassination attempt, he became way more casual with Madara and started calling him by his first name like friends. "And come back soon. Little Toph will miss you dearly." Madara chuckled. "Yeah, I will miss this little midget too." He looked at her for a bit, seeing her pouting but doing her best to keep her princess persona, before turning to Lao. "As for you, Mr. Beifong, take care of your health." Lao shook his head. "You know you can call me Lao at this point, don't you?" Pointing to the servants nearby, Madara replied, "Yes, but the word would spread and a certain someone would hate me even more." "Ha ha ha ha," Lao let out an awkward laugh. Toph walked forward like a princess and gave him a signal, to which he understood and lowered his head. They had their own signal language at this point. Every time Toph wanted to say something to him, something that would break her princess persona in public, she would use certain signals. "If you don't come back, I will beat the crap out of you the next time I see you," she whispered in a way that only he could hear. After that she elegantly walked back to her position by Lao. Madara grinned and stood up. "Very well, it shouldn't take long, 2 weeks give or take. Don't go dying on me, Mr. Beifong. You still have 4 years of gold tails to pay me." Lao just grinned back. And like that they parted temporarily. Well, that was until a shout came from behind. "Wait. Mr. Uchiha, wait." Everyone turned back to see a man in elegant clothes running towards them. "Jackie. What the hell are you doing here?" asked Madara confused. "I'm going with you, sir." I'm your assistant, it's my job to help you, he said firmly. Looking at Lau and seeing him smiling and nodding, Madara could only sigh. You better not slow me down, come, you will be carrying my luggage, he tossed his backpack to Lei. Yes sir. Lei caught it and walked towards the rest of the crew. He changed since he started his daily exercise with the guards under Madara's cruel torture. At first, he hated it, he barely could enjoy his wife and was in constant pain, but after the first 6 months, his body became tough and his six-pack was at full display. His body became so well-defined that his wife attacked him at nights and displayed many new kinks that he never knew. From that day forward he vowed to always follow Madara with all his heart. After traveling for half-week towards the nearest port city, they all entered the Beifong-owned boat, a huge flying boar on the sails that scared people away. No one wanted to fuck with the Beifongs. One word, one bounty, and they would be hunted for life, even by their close relatives. Money had that much power. The trip was actually very comfortable, even the ship was like a small palace stocked to the brim with luxury food and drinks. Damn, he is being spoiled rotten here. Pirate ship ahead. That interrupted Madara's meditation. His eyes slowly opened, displaying his blood-red Sharingan. He stood up and walked out of his cabin with slow steps and a neutral expression on his face. Everyone that saw him made way for him. Those eyes were scary. Yes sir, they are coming for us. These pirates don't care about the Beifong family. We should prepare for battle or for escape. Give us the order, sir. Pirates were different from the mainland bandits. There's no way to escape through the water, even for a waterbender, since they were quite far from the mainland, and they can just erase all the witnesses. The Beifongs would be furious, but they wouldn't have anyone to target. Storms were very common on the open seas after all. Madara reached bow of the ship and stood on top of the railings, his black robes and long spiky black hair moving with the wind. Keep current course, I will handle this. Gulp. Madara watched the pirate ship getting closer and closer with a demonic grin forming on his lips. I always wanted to do this. He formed the horse hand sign with both hands in front his chest, took a deep breath and said out loud, Katan, Guka Mikyaku. And just like that the world was set aflame. Chapter 15, Inferno. A group of pirates that usually raided specific routes between the Fire Nation and Earth Kingdom decided to relocate their usual route due to the recent Fire Navy moving east. They couldn't keep their operation for a while, so they had to go south. The captain was a scarred woman with a long black jacket. She had tanned skin and dark brown hair to complement her one blind eye, which had a long scar, and part of her partially burned scalp on the right side of her head, which makes her have a rather Vikingish hairstyle. She had a vicious air around her, wearing a crop top under her long coat that exposed her scarred yet well-defined abs, long puffy beige pants and dark brown long boots. She was tall for a woman, but anyone could see that she would have been a beauty if it wasn't for her damaged body, considering how beautiful her cyan blue eye was. Captain, we spotted a ship starboard side, said one of her henchmen, offering her the spyglasses. Taking the item, she turned towards the location. Aren't those sails from those rich fuckers from the Earth Kingdom? She said as she looked at the sails of the ship. Aye, Captain, they are filthy rich. After plundering their ship we can retire for months, said her first mate, a short stout man with a long dirty beard and a braided skullet hairstyle. Are you fucking retarded? They will chase us down if we attack, said one of the crew members that worked on the sails. Shut up, scrub, no one asked you, said the first mate. The woman kept staring at the ship. Attack or not attack? She had a bad feeling about this. Both sides had one ship and Beifongs had the money to hire strong protection. And they probably already spotted us. That can ruin our plans to plunder the south in secret until those Fire Nation bastards clear our waters. She snorted, caught between the devil and the deep blue sea. Everyone was silently waiting for the captain's decision. She smirked sadistically and shouted, bottoms up ye sea dogs, we are taking her home. Everyone shouted and ran to their places. All hands on deck, batten down the hatches, shouted the first mate. The ship slowly turned towards their target and started moving full speed. The captain walked towards the bow of the ship and stared at their prey with expectant eyes. A Beifong ship was a motherlode to any pirate. She may be afraid of consequences, but the sea is their realm. They could always erase all witnesses and no one would ever know. She kept staring at the other ship until she saw someone stepping on the top of the bow's railings. She focused her spyglass and saw a young boy with long black hair and black and red robes that looked a bit too fancy for some common servant to wear, but it was when she focused on his eyes that her heart skipped a beat. Those blood-red eyes staring directly at her from so far away, she could see him perfectly due to the spyglass, but why is she feeling like he can see perfectly as well without even needing one? Seeing him making some strange hand sign, she was confused. Is that the rich way to sign for peace or something? 1 second later the world turned red. She couldn't even describe it because the term massive didn't sound accurate enough. A gigantic wave of fire was launched on their direction, devouring sea water like a hungry beast and leaving a huge cloud of vapor behind. It approached them at high speed, roaring like an angry stampede wanting to trample everything in its way. Roar. She felt insignificant in front of such display of power. Quickly turning around, she dashed towards the cabin while shouting in panic as she ran. Brace yourselves. The sails burned before the wave even got there. It was so hot that people were sweating from both dread and heat way before the wave reached them. Even the captain's skin started boiling while running as the disaster came closer and closer. All the greed and lust for gold disappeared in a sea of fire. On the opposite ship the situation wasn't so different. Every crew member stared wide-eyed at the massive wave of fire that roared towards the pirates. This absurd level of power wasn't something they ever saw or even hear about it. Some kept staring at the fire absent-minded, some stared at the young boy in black and red wondering if he is an ancient dragon in disguise. Jackie on the other hand looked up, wondering if Sozan's comet had returned. After the wave devoured the ship, it slowly faded away, leaving behind a thick cloud of vapor everywhere. The pirate captain was on her knees inside the captain cabin, with smoke coming out of her entire body. Her jacket was half burned to cinders, her pants were devoured and now they could barely cover up to her thighs. Her boots and top were still intact, but that was because of the boots' materials and because the jacket took most of the damage head on. She breathed heavily and tried her best to not lose consciousness here. She used every amount of chi she had to pull the water out of the ocean and create a barrier around her. It wasn't a perfect barrier, she didn't have enough time to make one of those. She had to compensate the sloppiness with chi and that costed her dearly. She was barely awake. Cough, cough, she heard her first mates coughing outside. Core, are ye still with me? She spoke as loud as she could, taking deep breaths between words since she was beyond exhausted right now. Her voice turned raspy due to the feeling of dehydration. Ca. Captain. A weak voice reached her ears and she mustered her whole strength to walk outside the cabin. What she saw brought her despair, fear, and sadness. Corpses with boiled skin everywhere, the ship charred like charcoal, falling apart. A slightly bigger wave would break the hull. Captain. The voice again. She hurried and looked around and spotted her first mate completely burned, massive lumps of ruined flesh all over his body. There's no way to save him, it's just a matter of time now. We. Showed ve left. Were his last words. He nodded and lowered her head. We should've. Although sad she was a pirate, there was no romance between crewmates here. Those who fell behind stayed behind. What made her like this was another thing. Her first mate, just like her, was a waterbender, and she didn't have any doubt that he used his skills to protect himself with water, but even doing that he ended up like this. If I didn't reach the cabin in time. She could only gulp at that thought. Her thoughts were interrupted by a childish male voice. Oh, so there are survivors after all. Turning her head towards the source of the voice, her one good eye captured the sight of the same young man from the spyglass, standing there on top of the charred deck with an indifferent gaze, his red eyes glowing through the fog. How should I call you? He asked. Kalia, she answered. She wasn't stuttering or anything like that, she was just that tired. Very well, Kalia, from now on your residence will be inside our brig. I have some questions for you if you don't mind. Was all she could say before her world turned black and she passed out. The rest of the crew jumped onto the charred ship and started looking around. Paper and other fragile items were long gone, but gold and precious metals obviously endured the flames. They looted everything they found under Madara's orders. Good paycheck or not, no one would throw away some extra income that just falls on your lap like that. Kalia was first sent to a cabin to be treated. Madara needed her alive to get some information. He hasn't traveled across the 4 nations yet, so any information would be welcomed. It took a whole day to complete Kalia's treatment. Once she woke up, she was escorted to the brig. She didn't complain or anything, just followed instructions. During those 24 hours the crew was silent, especially around Madara. Most of them, excluding the few handling the ship and medics aboard, were trained under Madara's torture, and they knew Madara was no joke when it came to martial arts. His firebending was also an open secret at this point. Although one talked about it, everyone knew, but no one ever saw him using it before. Today was the first time, and no one would be able to forget it. Kalia was resting, sitting on the ground and leaning her back against the metal bars, waiting for whatever it was to come, having captured many prisoners before she knew of her possible outcomes, but having a possibility of life was still better than having certainty of death. She heard light footsteps walking down the stairs, coming towards her. She slowly turned her head and her eye captured the same boy again. This time his eyes were pitch black though, that made her rather curious. She never heard of such a skill. "So, Kalia, are you enjoying your stay?" asked the boy. "Ye rich folk brigs are better than me ol' cabin," she chuckled in response. Madara chuckled in response. "I can't deny that, these people are rather excessive." "These people? Aren't you one of them? Judging by ye clothes." Madara shrugged. "They pay me, they house me, they outfit me and they feed me, what can I say?" She laughed. "Ye live the life of a king." He laughed as well. "I can't deny that either." After that a brief moment of silence she spoke first. "So, what you wanted to know?" "Oh. Don't play dumb with me. I know ye left me alive for a purpose. Me gold and me ship are gone, so the only reason I am treated and alive is because ye need something I might know. You are rather smart for a pirate. And how do ye think I became a captain in the first place?" "By riding on a sea of cocks," she snorted and spat on the floor. "If those whores use their bodies, I use me brains." "Commendable," Madara chuckled. "With a look like yours I thought you would do exactly that, to be honest." She snorted again and ignored his remark. "You are from the Northern Water Tribe, aren't you?" What? She was shocked by his spot-on question. Yes you are," he grinned. "What difference does it makes? And ye haven't told me what you wanted." "All right, let's start with that then. My name is Madara Uchiha." "Ye already know me name, Kalia." "I initially wanted to interrogate you while giving you false hope of life and eventually get rid of you," he said with an expressionless face. And what changed? She wasn't surprised. She did the same many times over. "Your brains, that's what changed. Tell me, Kalia of the Northern Water Tribe, would you be willing to work for me?" Madara grinned. Chapter 16, Going Back Home. Kalia raised one eyebrow. "Work for ye? Are ye serious? Ye just took all me gold and destroyed me ship, why would I accept?" "Precisely because of that. You have no gold and you have no ship, your crew of misfits are also gone. Even if let you go you would have to scrap the bottom of the barrel and start all over again. How many years would it take?" She closed her eyes. "And, if hypothetically I accept it, what would be me obligations? What do you want from me?" "Well, if hypothetically you accepted, I would sponsor your voyage, give you enough money for a new ship and hire some actually trustworthy crew instead of a bunch of criminals." Her eyes opened a bit and she stared at him. "And what exactly would ye order me to do?" "Explore the seas, record the latest news and interesting rumors for me, and anything else I want you to do," he shrugs. "Anything else? That's rather vague. What if ye order me to sail to the biggest Fire Nation volcano and eat lava then? Will ye hunt me down if I deny?" Madara chuckled. "Well, that's rather extreme, isn't it?" "I won't request anything like that," said the men that burned me ship and me crew to cinders. Shrugging he replied, "Guilty as charged, but you came to raid my ship, you can only blame yourself for that outcome." Her gaze turned serious. "And why would ye trust me? Ye said yourself that I came to raid ye." "I'm a pirate, only a complete moron would trust a pirate." Madara laughed out loud, extended one of his hands and grabbed one of the iron bars of the little jail. "I won't trust you, I don't need to trust you. I know your face, I know your name and I have all the money in the world to hunt you down." Smoke started to escape from under his grip. "And you will learn, Miss Kalia, that double-crossing me and eating lava have one thing in common, anyone can do it, once." Kalia stared wide-eyed as Madara turned and left, shifting her gaze to the red-hot bent metal bar with finger marks, like it was squeezed, and gulped. Damn, is that even considered firebending at this point? Madara climbed up the stairs removing his ruined black glove while clicking his tongue. He stared at the burned skin of his palm. "Sure is intimidating, but it hurts like hell, won't be doing that again." The rest of the trip was fine. Madara kept meditating most of the time. People still avoided him in fear. That brought some peace to his trip, but he knew that he needed to solve that issue. Fear is good for deterrence but awful for building trust. People might start seeing him as a threat instead of an ally and that would complicate things. Sigh, if only they knew. Madara said while staring at the ceiling. His fire wave sure was impressive, was on the level of Ozai's firebending after being enhanced by Sozin's comet. The problem was it emptied his chi pool. He could still firebend after doing that but not for long. if he had to guess he would say it was below 1/3 after his great fire annihilation. Grabbing his gunbai went without a hitch. He left the ship alone, ran up the mountain while forcing himself to forget the debacle of the last time he ran on this mountain. Before coming down again he had one final tour around the temple. This was his first home in this world, although awfully uncomfortable he had to admit. This place brought him peace like no other. Perhaps that's why the monks built it here. There's just something special about this place. Staring at the pile of old bones that represented the air nomad's last stand, he felt conflicted. In one hand he truly didn't care. It has been a very long time since this happened and he never met any of these people. On the other hand, these people were responsible for this amazing place that brought him peace. With a sigh he let go of his gunbai and started digging graves all around the gardens and filled them with the old bones of dead monks, the final one being Monk Gyatso. Madara went an extra mile for this one and made a makeshift tombstone using some debris from destroyed walls, attaching his necklace on it so Aang could see it. The Avatar needed his wake-up call and this necklace meant nothing for Madara anyway. Leaving it here for Aang would be a better choice. It took a whole day to finish the graves. He ran down the mountain with the gunbai attached to his back like a true shinobi. The weapon was still way too big for the current him, but at least he could run around while carrying it now that he was 11, even if he had to carry it sideways. Lei was the responsible for the crew while Madara was gone. He, like everyone else, was rather conflicted inside after the fire wave incident. He didn't know how to behave near Madara, but before he could be dragged even more into these negative feelings, he slapped both cheeks hard and stood up. "Wake up, boys, Mr. Uchiha will be back at any minute now and we will prepare a good feast for him," he said out loud. Silence reigned supreme. "Mr. Lei, aren't you afraid of Mr. Uchiha?" That power dash. Before he could continue, Lei slapped him on the face. "Wake up. Mr. Uchiha was always strong like that. He is the same person that he always was. He trained you, me and other 10 men in this ship. He gave his all to teach us. He never missed a day. Mr. Uchiha made us all better soldiers, and now you are afraid of your mentor. Don't you have any shame?" He yelled the last part in anger. "But. No buts. He will be arriving any minute now. Imagine how he is feeling right now with all of us ignoring him, afraid of him. You all forget that he is only 11 years old. Do you really want to mistreat someone who went above and beyond to teach you the best he could?" Mr. Lei is right. Mr. Uchiha did his best for us, and now is our turn to do our best for him. I. Lei nodded in satisfaction with a grin on his face. "My dad once told me that people that reach the top usually become lonely because others don't understand them and thus fear them. As long as I am Mr. Uchiha's assistant, I will do my best to support him." The loud noise of people running around, making food and preparing barrels of different beverages echoed through the ship. It was so loud that Kalia, who was resting with her eyes closed, heard it all. She couldn't help but smile. A man that inspired that level of confidence despite being so young. Perhaps I should accept his offer. If his people respect him so much that even fear didn't shake them for long, it might not be a bad thing for me. Sigh, perhaps it's time to retire from me pirate life and aim for bigger and better things. She grinned. I was getting tired of those ugly bastards anyway. When Madara finally arrived back at the boat, what welcomed him was a joyous and cheerful party, many fancy food and drinks all around, people singing and doing many different contests, from arm wrestling to drinking contest. Some even were doing a throwing dart contest imitating his poses when he uses his kunai. "What the? Come on, Mr. Uchiha," said Lei, and he received him with a plate full of delicious food, handing it to him. What's the meaning of all of this? He was actually confused. "Well, we are celebrating your victory over those evil pirates, of course. Come, we have many different drinks to enjoy, Mr. Uchiha." Madara grabbed his plate and followed Lei absent-mindedly. What the actual fuck? He arrived at the main deck and heard a loud female voice roaring in laughter. "Wahahaha, ye rich fucks can't even drink." Madara looked towards the voice and saw Kalia drinking cup after cup of booze surrounded by 3 passed-out soldiers. What the hell is going on, Jackie? Why is the pirate free? Lei, who had a chicken leg in his mouth, simply replied while eating. "Once we were almost completing the preparations for the party, she called me down there and said she would take your deal, so we opened the brig." He shrugged while pieces of chicken flew out of his mouth while he talked. "Fucking gross." He shook his head. "And you believed her? Are you a moron by any chance to believe a pirate's word?" Lei gulped his food. "Of course not, but we are in a secluded island which only way out is through our boat or taking a very long swim. She could obviously try to take us down, but after 1 year training under you, Mr. Uchiha, all I can do is wish her luck." He. A sinister chuckle escaped his mouth. Madara's face suddenly morphed into a deadpan Saitama after hearing that. Why everyone around me is so fucking weird. Taking a deep breath and just letting it go, he went towards one of the tables and ate his food, which was really delicious by the way, praise the money. Hey there boss, nice to see ye around here. Madara looked back over his shoulder and saw Kalia approach him with unsteady steps. She is dead drunk. His eyebrow twitched. Finishing another cup of soju, she sat on the floor by his table. Ye rich bastards can't drink, but damn ye people can afford good stuff, she said cheerfully while slurring. Care to explain, like, everything? She shrugged without a care for the world. I decided to take ye deal, so from now on ye me boss. She grinned, so I decided that since ye me boss, nothing fairer than me joining this merry occasion. Aren't you being a bit too happy after losing everything, near being burned to death and being locked for a week eating leftover food? Hiccup, well, ye might be right but, I survived, I got a good job now, I don't have to worry about being backstabbed in me sleep by me first mate, and ye people's leftovers are more delicious than anything I could ever afford, so, all in all, it's a win, she grinned. I still don't trust you. And that's wise of ye, if ye did I would be disappointed, but in time I will earn ye trust just like that funny-looking fella, she said as she pointed to Lei. I don't really know why but there's something about his face and voice that makes me laugh. Madara started laughing out loud, so loud that everyone heard it and cheered, raising their cups and chugging it down. He is Jackie, and I totally get what you mean, trust me. He said with a smile on his face. Jackie. He said his name is Lei. Madara frowned. From now on you will be calling him Jackie, that's my first order. This time was Kalia's turn to burst out laughing. Aye captain. The festivities lasted the whole night and they had to wait one extra day to go back to the sea. Everyone was wasted, even Madara enjoyed soju that night and he didn't leave his cabin for a whole day. Goddamn child body can't even take alcohol. Fuck. The next day everyone woke up early in the morning, cleaned the mess and prepared to sail once again. Jackie was overseeing all of it like a hawk, not letting anyone slack. He knew Madara gave his word to the Beifongs that he would be back in 2 weeks and he would make it happen even if he had to slave these men to death. Hurry up men, he shouted. Ugh, he hears a childish voice behind him and turning around he saw Madara with a hand on his forehead. He grinned and approached. Mr. Uchiha, everything is ready, we set sail on your command. Madara could only wryly smile and shake his head. You didn't have to do all of that, Jackie. But, thank you, he said as he walked past Lei and walked towards the crew. Lei stared wide-eyed at the 11-year-old and a satisfied grin appeared on his face. No worries Mr. Uchiha, I'm your assistant after all. Smiling Madara turned to the crew and shouted. All right boys, it's time to sail back home. Kalia, take the wheel. Aye captain. Chapter 17, Disappearance. They took 5 days for them to reach the Earth Kingdom again, all thanks to Lei the slaver. The poor crew hugged the ground once they stepped on land, many with tears falling down the dark circles under their eyes due to sleep deprivation. Many people started to think that Lei was spending a bit too much time under Madara's tutelage and was starting to absorb some of his traits, the worst traits. We couldn't even sleep properly, you fucker. The crew kept moving inland towards Gaoling at a comfortable pace. Once they reached the great city was already sunset and Madara went to his training cave with Kalia and Lei. The rest of the crew ran to their houses to get some sleep, some left after spreading some sailor's speech out loud through the clean city streets. You will stay here for a while Kalia, this place is my training grounds and there's a bedroom and a bathroom inside. You can use the main area to practice your waterbending if you need or want and Jackie here will be responsible for bringing you meals. Madara said. Kalia whistled, this is a damn fancy place to train, money be praised. The corners of Madara's mouth raised into an understanding grin finally. Someone gets it. So, how long will I be staying in this fancy place? She asked. I will check how's the situation inside the estate and will come back later tonight to discuss future plans. For now go and take a bath and rest. He turned to Lei. Jackie, bring her food and clean clothes later. I know Lao Beifong won't give her anything, so give her one of my old black robes that I brought with me, the ones that are too big for me. It might not be perfect for her height but it's better than nothing. Leave it to me Mr. Uchiha. Lei bowed his head. The duo left Kalia to her things and walked back to the estate. It wasn't far, roughly 10 minutes away, but when they entered the estate, the mood was heavy, something isn't right. Hastening his steps Madara went straight to the main residence with Lei on his tail. Reaching there he informed the maid that he was back and asked to inform Mr. Beifong that he was back. Less than a minute later she requested him to enter his office, and when he entered, he heard a loud female voice exclaiming anxiously. "You have to do something, it's all his fault and you know it." Madara was faced with the sight of a grim Lao Beifong listening to the shouts of a panicked Poppy Beifong. Once they turned and saw him, Poppy rushed towards him while pointing fingers. "It's all your fault, we shouldn't have ever allowed you inside our home," she yelled like a crazy person. Lao kept his cool but his face was serious and grim. "Poppy, leave us," he said. "No, I will not allow him to swindle you again. This boy is a disaster, everything is his fault, even you stopped listening to me like you used to before this pest arrived and ruined our lives." Lao lost it and raised his voice. "Poppy, leave us now." The poor woman could only let out a yelp and run away in tears. It was the first time her husband ever yelled at her. He was always so calm and gentle. "What dash?" Madara tried to talk but was interrupted. Toph disappeared. One of the maids saw her earthbending through the wall. Said the man with a serious tone, staring at Madara's eyes. Madara was relieved. Since Toph ran away, she will finally learn from the badger moles and develop her skills just like in canon, but he had to keep a straight, serious face. "How long has it been?" asked Madara. 3 days. Said Lao. "I will go look for her." "Yes, you will," he said, narrowing his eyes. Regardless of being friends with Madara at this point, he knew Madara and Toph were quite close, and he also knew that Madara's personality could very well rub off on Toph, especially at such young age. Kids absorb things like sponges. He had no doubt that Madara had an indirect fault for what happened. Madara nodded and turned around to leave when he heard Lao's final words. "We believe that she is on the foggy swamp." "Madara, do you know what that means?" Madara stopped on his tracks and his eyes widened. Hurriedly he turned to Lao with a panicked expression. "You can't be serious." Lao just nodded and said nothing. "But, it has been a year." "Yes, but they never caught you. Do you think they gave up?" "No, they are angrier than ever. They will not stop until they find you, or someone to take the blame for your actions." Madara's heart raced at this point. If the Fire Nation finds Toph before he does, regardless of being a blind little girl, they wouldn't care. Yes, the 12-year-old Toph Beifong could play with Fire Nation bastards like they were children, but the 5-year-old Toph with no earthbending mastery whatsoever. A cold sweat ran down the back of his neck at that thought. "Say no more," said Madara as he dashed out of the office full speed towards his house. Music time. Play Naruto OST Chain Explosion, full. Once inside, he threw his fancy robes on the bed and started wearing his full black old ones, putting all weapons he had inside his sleeves, wrapping the metal wire perfectly inside his robes. If it's the greedy ghost that they are looking for, the greedy ghost is exactly who they will find. His blood-red Sharingan activated immediately. As he ran out of his house, he stopped a maid on his way. "Tell Lei that he should let my guest know that we might need to speed up our plans," he said on dark somber tone. The poor maid was terrified of those red eyes. "These are not human eyes." She nodded while shaking in fear, and he just ignored her reaction. He had bigger problems right now. He ran towards the nearest wall of the estate and climbed it, jumping on the tree nearby, disappearing with the setting sun. It was a dark night. The sky was cloudy and the moonlight was completely hidden behind the stormy clouds. It would rain at any moment as thunder echoed from above. Between the trees, a small girl covered in mud could be seen running while being guided by big badger moles. Toph had escaped her home 3 days ago and found herself lost in the foggy swamp. After half a day, she was discovered by big brown badger moles that resided in that specific region. Initially scared, she tried to escape, but being blind prevented her from doing anything. Eventually she discovered that the badger moles were rather pacific creatures. Not only that, she made friends with them, and by following them for 2 days she already discovered a few things about earthbending. A few hours ago, she was asking the badger moles to help her to find her way home. Her parents must be really worried by now, and she was afraid of implicating her big brother Madara in this mess. Just like Appa and the dragons, badger moles could roughly understand human speech and led her out of the cave, cleaning the road through the swamp for her. Halfway through her trip, though, she was spotted by a Fire Nation scout, and that scout shouted out loud and called for all the nearby soldiers that called even more soldiers, and right now she was running covered in dirt and bruises through the swamp from a wave of soldiers that followed behind while shooting fire. Thanks to the badger mole's earthbending, they managed to create some distance, but the creature was too big, thus easy to spot. Toph was too slow, and the soldiers were too many. She was already exhausted when she fell on the ground after tripping on a tree root. Before getting up, she heard a raspy voice. "We finally got you," a thunder echoed on the sky and illuminated the Fire Nation soldier behind her. She couldn't see, but she knew she had no hope at this point. The badger mole fought a couple other soldiers that were trying to catch up. The man raised his fist and a flame was ignited. But before he could finish the attack, his body stopped moving. The fire was extinguished and his arm dropped. All that Toph heard after that was a light thud sound followed by a louder thud sound. There was no scream. "Are you all right, little midget?" Toph's eyes widened as heard a very familiar voice. Madara." She felt a hand patting her head. "It's good to see you safe." She could feel the warmth of his touch even though he wore gloves. Looking around, Madara stared at the massive wave of soldiers approaching and threw 2 kunais towards the soldiers fighting the badger mole. They both yelled in pain and dropped on the ground. The badger mole turned towards him cautiously, but when he saw how Madara and Toph seemed to know one another, it approached them and nodded in appreciation. "Toph, can you feel the ground already?" he said with a serious tone. "How did you?" She was shocked. She roughly learned that yesterday. How could he possibly know? "We have no time for that. Use your skills and run away from here." He turned to the badger mole. "Please lead her to safety." The beast nodded and poked Toph with its nose, telling her to follow him. "But dash. No buts, leave now," he shouted. She gulped and nodded. "And don't worry, your badass brother won't be bested by these pesky cannon fodder," he said on a snarky tone. She said nothing, got up, and with the help of the badger mole she started to move away. Not long after, the whole battalion of firebenders arrived at the place, led by none other than Commander Zhao, Zhang's son, that took the mission to destroy the greedy ghost for the sake of revenge. He had a higher rank than his father due to his own connections and ruthlessness, a thing that his father lacked. "So, you're the greedy ghost, I presume. We finally meet. I thought you would keep hiding inside your hole, too scared to come and face the consequences for your actions." Madara laughed. "Nah, I heard that a bunch of losers were starting a party in my swamp without my permission, so I came here to kick you out." Zhao snorted. "Pretentious commoner, today you will understand what happens when someone defies the Fire Nation." "Oh yeah." Madara smirked sinisterly and assumed his fighting stance while pulling a bunch of kunais, holding them between his fingers, and stepping on the decapitated head of the soldier that tried to hurt Toph. "Then let's dance." Chapter 18, Officially Pissed. Let's play Naruto Shippuden OST, Shuryu. Madara was tense. This would be the toughest battle of his life. He was already partially tired after sailing for so long and rushing here at full speed for hours. He was starving since he didn't eat a single thing since he left the ship, and he couldn't use guerrilla tactics to fight these soldiers as he did before, otherwise a part of them could go back to chase Toph instead of focusing on him, adding just the sheer numbers of opponents. Looking around, should I just use another Great Fire Annihilation? He shook his head. No, the terrain is against me this time. They are too spread out and there's obstacles everywhere. There were no other possibilities that he could think at this time. He needed to make them ignore Toph's existence, so he needed to fight them head on. "Come on, Madara, I have chosen you for a reason. Don't disappoint me now." Zhao, on the other hand, was very relaxed. He couldn't really see what the greedy ghost looked like since there was no moonlight to illuminate the swamp tonight and the man was dressed fully in black, but he knew that this person was his ticket to a promotion. "I might get my general badge after this," he grinned. The stare down didn't last long. Madara moved first. He dashed full speed towards the soldiers, with his Sharingan slowly spinning and a battle-crazed smile on his face. "I'm going to kill you all." As he was mid-run, a wave of fire covered his vision. Having no cover in sight, he quickly jumped as high as he could, dodging the wave. Doing a spin in the air, he tossed a kunai to the side. The wire wrapped around a tree trunk. Looking towards the soldiers, he saw a second wave of fire coming towards him mid-air. He pulls the wire with his full strength, and due to it being tied around a tree, he moved towards the kunai instead of the kunai moving back towards him, dodging the second wave. "So that's how it works." His sinister smile grew more. He landed sideways with his feet on the tree trunk and jumped towards the next tree, moving closer and closer to the soldiers while dodging wave after wave of fire, either using his speed or the trees as cover. "I need to infiltrate their numbers." He jumped towards the next tree, a wave of fire passing right above his shoulder. "As long as I'm alone, I will be an easy target for their firebending." The closer he got to his enemies, the more chaotic their attacks became, abandoning the combined firebending and attacking individually, aiming to strike from every direction. Using his wires, he swings towards the next tree trunk. As he is about to step on the branch, his Sharingan captured a firebender aiming at the precise location where he was about to land. The man didn't ignite the fire yet, but his eyes could see the chi inside his body moving. He instantly moved his hand. Argh, the soldier in question screamed with a kunai lodged between his fingers all the way to the handle. Madara landed safely and stared at the crowd right ahead of him. All is going well, now let's show them the ultimate taijutsu. Jumping as far as he could, he managed to land in the middle of the soldiers' formation. Using his lower stance due to the landing, he put his hand on the ground and did a quick break dance spin, sending a fire wave through his feet in 360 degrees around him. The ring of fire expanded and caught over a dozen soldiers unprepared. Many screams of pain. He is a firebender. Zhao was shocked at the battle and the revelation and grew serious. What? This person is way too skilled to be unknown. When the soldiers tried to reach him, he used one kunai attached to the metal wire as a whip in each hand to keep hacking them down, and if they tried to maintain distance, for a firebending counter he sent his own wave of fire through his feet by kicking and spinning. Yes, he was surrounded, but the soldiers were slow due to their armor and had a limited field of view due to their helmets. Madara was just too fast, nimble, and short due to his age. For every fireball that they managed to hit, 10 soldiers were taken down, and since he was in the middle of the battalion, the soldiers in the back couldn't just throw fire at him or they would hit their own people. With a slightly pained expression due to a hit on the back of his shoulder, he turned around and sliced the throat of the soldier by controlling a kunai through the wire. Now it's become a battle of attrition, and I won't lose. Toph was being carried by the badger mole at full speed towards Gaoling. It took her 2 hours to reach her destination. Dropping from her new friend, she moved as fast as she could towards the Beifong estate. The rain started pouring as she hastened her steps, using her rough seismic sense to avoid being seen. Once she was about to enter the estate, she heard a voice. Miss Beifong. She jumped, but then calmed down when she recognized that voice. Lei. Yes, it's me, Miss Beifong. What are you doing out here? Lei. You have to help Madara. He is surrounded by countless Fire Nation soldiers in the swamp, she exclaimed. Calm down, young miss, come with me. He grabbed her tiny hand, I apologize, and guided her towards Madara's training area. Once they entered and closed the door, Lei spotted Kalia and gulped. She was wearing Madara's black robes, but they were too small for her, so they were very tight, and her massive assets were easily noticeable. Damn, this woman is hot, WTF. Ah, Jackie. What did you bring for food? She asked in a lazy tone while stretching her body. Gulp. I'm a married man. He shook his head and concentrated. Mr. Uchiha was surrounded by the Fire Nation inside the foggy swamp. She just shrugged. Yeah. What are you worried about? That guy did the biggest wave of fire of the century and burned me ship to cinders alongside me crew. He will turn those pesky soldiers into ashes. Toph was actually surprised. She didn't know Madara was a firebender, and according to what she just heard, an absurdly powerful one at that. But Lei didn't seem that calm. He shook his head. You don't understand. Your ship was an easy target and your crew was packed inside it, and even with that, Mr. Uchiha disappeared for a whole day after bringing you to our ship. I assume he was dead tired. A power of that scale was surely exhausting for him, but now it's different. He is surrounded. He won't be able to pull the same trick, and even if he does, I doubt he will hit every enemy with it. Kalia grew serious. She didn't think about that. Ye right, Jackie. By the way, who is the little toad over there? She said with a smug grin, looking at Toph. Toph snorted. Someone that will beat the shit out of you one day if you don't shut up. She crossed her arms and huffed. Jackie went between the two. Calm down. Now is not the time for this drama. Kalia, you go to the foggy swamp to help Mr. Uchiha. Toph, I will lead you to the bathroom to take a shower. You can't go face your parents looking like that. I will ask my wife to smuggle some of your clothes out of your chambers. She is one of your maids, so it will be easy for her. Toph narrowed her eyes and walked long strides towards the corner. Kalia narrowed her eyes towards Toph. This little one got heart. She grinned and stood up and moved towards the exit, but before she could reach the lever, a hand grabbed her arm with a hard grip. Turning around, she saw Lei looking at her with a murderous expression. If you dare to betray Mr. Uchiha, I will hunt you down and kill you myself, he said in a low and somber tone while his narrow eyes kept staring at hers. Swapping music, Emergence of Talents / Hyakariaren from Shippuden OST. Back on the battlefield, Madara was surrounded by corpses. He kept killing soldier after soldier, but they seemed to never end. There were already beads of sweat covering his forehead. Are these fuckers respawning or something? He crouched, dodging a point-blank fireball, grabbed the soldier's wrist and throat with his hands and used him as a shield against another fireball. Zhao at this point was actually starting to fear that person. He already downed at least 60 men, with who knows how many more injured, and it doesn't seem like he is out of gas yet. He looked around and saw only 20 to 30 peak state soldiers remaining. Trying to grab Madara, 3 soldiers rushed towards him. Noticing this, Madara jumped high and landed his feet on a soldier's shoulders right before doing a backflip to evade a fireball that was instantly thrown at him. As he landed, he pulled one of his last kunai and lunged it towards the soldier's jaw from below his helmet, piercing through his skull. He had to let go of his weapon to do a quick roll to the side and evade a kick aiming for his head. Mid-roll he opened his mouth and breathed fire directly to that soldier's crotch since he had one leg raised high. My stamina. I can feel my movements getting slower already. Damn, I should have eaten and rested a bit. He dodged again, killing another soldier by throwing his final kunai at his eye. Their numbers are finally down. He looked around, he grinned. Luckily, I saved some of my chi. Using firebending only for precise attacks or to defend this damn child's body. Madara did this easily. Why is it so hard for me? Am I missing something? His thoughts were interrupted by a heavy kick to his chest that sent him back a few feet. Cough, damn, that hurts you motherfucker. Landing on his feet, he got into his stance again. Looking up, he saw the smug grin on Zhao's face as he retracted his foot. Commendable endurance, to think you were so young. He couldn't really see Madara's face because it was covered by his messy mane, but with his voice and height, there was no mistake. You could have been an asset for the Fire Nation. Hey, if that pathetic Fire Lord wants me to serve him, call him here to have an Agni Kai with me. If he wins, then I will accept it. Madara chuckled and spat on the ground. Zhao frowned and got pissed. Preposterous. You filthy commoner dare to speak like that about our Fire Lord. I will make it easier for you to fight then. I will fight you myself so I can teach you where you belong. Madara roared in laughter. Those words triggered him. Make it easier for me to fight, you say? His Sharingan glowed and Zhao got scared when he saw those demonic red eyes. Congratulations, Bug. You officially pissed me off. He took a deep breath and fire came out of his mouth as he slowly exhaled. If that's the case, then I will make it easier for you to run. I will fight you seriously so I can teach you the meaning of fear. A clap of loud thunder echoed through the skies as he shouted his final word. A blue aura appeared around him and a spectral ribcage started to form, encasing him inside it. Chapter 19, True Fear. Let's settle this mood with the Zetsu theme, Shippuden OST. What the hell is this? This is no human. Is he a spirit? Zhao could only stare wide-eyed as a spectral ribcage appeared around Madara. He never heard of anything like it before. What kind of power is this? Gulp. Come here, little Zhao, a dark and sinister voice echoed from inside the ribcage. He could only see Madara's shape and his eyes. Those demonic red eyes that glowed in the dark. Zhao took one step back as Madara took one step forward. Madara gave up on all possibility of a battle of attrition and went all out. He knew that considering how exhausted and hurt he currently was, he wouldn't be able to outlast every single soldier here. Eventually he would collapse and even a scrub would be able to score a finishing blow on him. He could have tried to escape, but he wanted to finish this fight. He felt excited by the thought of such battle. He did find it strange that he became a battle maniac after transmigration. Was it a Madara trait that he absorbed, or was he always like this and was just born in the wrong era? He didn't know, and he didn't give a fuck. His blood was pumping and he wanted to keep this fight going for a bit longer. Don't tell me that you are afraid now, little Zhao, he chuckled. Come, the night is still young, let's keep dancing. He dashed towards Zhao, who tried to counter with fire. Madara didn't even dodge, he just dashed through the wave of flames and came out unscathed. Zhao saw his opponent's silhouette raising his hand, and suddenly the spectral ribcage expanded and a skeletal arm appeared. What? Bang. The big skeletal fist hit him on the side of his torso. Crack. Zhao felt the bones of the upper right side of his body shattering. He flew like a cannonball and was lucky to be caught by his soldiers before he could hit a rock or a tree. Zhao was fucked and he knew it. Such power behind a single punch. A single punch. Trying to stand up and overcome his newfound fear, Zhao used his strongest firebending move with his one available arm, alongside his remaining standing soldiers, and launched a massive combined fire missile towards the abomination, but as the fire reached his target it just dispersed. What? Now he had goosebumps all over his body. his back drenched in cold sweat. You will have to do better than that, little Zhao. Madara's movements were slower than ever at this point due to exhaustion and lack of chi, yet he was like an impregnable fortress that could fight back, a very dreadful concept, but at the same time Zhao saw hope when he noticed how slow Madara was moving around the battlefield. He is getting tired, get him. One of the soldiers acted instantly and rushed towards Madara with all his speed, jumping in the air while spinning as flames came out of his heel, ready to strike. Zhao didn't know what to expect, but he had hope. Even a single crack on that shell would be enough to keep the morale of his soldiers on a decent level, enough to keep fighting. He is obviously tired, if we can dash. His thoughts were interrupted at that moment, because before the man could complete his bending, the skeletal hand grabbed him midair. I never liked bugs, they annoy me. The hand's grip intensified and loud crack sounds echoed as the soldier screamed in pain and despair. Please spare me. Crack. Arg. After that he tossed the broken soldier towards Zhao, who managed to dodge in time but was in so much pain that he could barely stand up. How does it feel, little Zhao? The feeling of despair and hopelessness. The blue flame-like aura expanded in all directions and the soldiers felt dread. We can't fight this. See, Commander, let's retreat. Zhao gulped hard as he was shaking inside his armor. There was no hope. Fuck this. Zhao turned around and ran. He ran as fast as he could. That thing, whatever it was, made him feel at death's door. At least it was slow and wouldn't be able to give it a chase at this point. The soldiers, who already were low on morale, looked at each other and as if they were given a new lease in life they dashed to all sides, spreading through the swamp as fast as they could. Escaping was all they could think right now. No one gave a damn about their pride when faced with sure death. Madara's eyes went wide. He was livid. Oi. Don't fuck with me, Zhao. Come here and face your death like a man. He shouted in anger while used the skeletal arm to grab a big rock nearby and tossing towards Zhao, who dodged thanks to the soldiers beside him that pulled him to the side. You fucking coward. And like that the remaining soldiers ran for their lives and abandoned the battlefield. Madara on the other hand was breathing heavily. Activating Susanoo was a risky move, but he knew that he wouldn't be able to win the battle if it kept going. His condition was far from optimal, and he did the one thing that he could think of, break their spirit. He was having a hard time staying awake. His vision started to get blurry due to exhaustion and he raised his head and shouted at the top of his lungs. Run, little Zhao, run like the little coward that you are. His voice echoed through the swamp as the ribcage disappeared and he fell on one knee. His Sharingan deactivated and he felt something coming through his throat. Blurg. Blood came out of his mouth. I will take a long time to recover from this. He stood up again, and mustering all his strength and willpower he walked through the swamp with unsteady steps, using trees and rocks on his way as support so he didn't fall on the ground. I have to get away from here. I don't know what kind of predator will be drawn by the smell of blood. My body can't handle it. He spat some more blood as he walked. Susanoo in this world is way too demanding for my current body. Why couldn't the voice make it more like the avatar state? Is it because it's external while the avatar state is internal? It was possible for him to continue fighting if he never activated Susanoo. He could even take down more soldiers, but on the long run, he would have been overwhelmed. There was no escape since he was surrounded, so he gambled it all on the Susanoo and did his best to keep it up until everyone was gone. Even the final shout was just to plant a permanent seed of fear in Zhao's heart. During the whole battle he was hit many times, although very few through firebending. Those physical injuries added up, and that final kick from Zhao cracked his ribs. Next time I see you, I will tear you apart. He walked for hours. Each step was harder than the one before since both his chi and stamina reached rock bottom. I need to rest, though, as he fell down on the ground, panting. When his consciousness was about to fade, he heard a familiar voice. What do we have here? Using all his willpower he could muster, he opened his eyes slightly and saw a familiar blurry silhouette. Snort, to think he would get beaten this bad. You should see the other guy. He tried to chuckle but coughed hard. She chuckled. It's like fate, isn't it? You remember what you did to me ship and me crew? Do you remember what I told you about trusting a pirate? Madara said nothing at this point. If she really is going for vengeance, there were no words that would save him. He could only close his eyes, and since he couldn't muster any more strength, it was all up to fate. Kalia leaned towards him and stared at his exhausted visage, clicking her tongue. Ye know, it's not really fun to tease ye. She grabbed his exhausted body like a sack of potatoes and placed him over her shoulder, and here I was thinking that I could at least scare ye a little bit. She turned around and started running back towards Gao Ling at full speed. Leaving the training area with Lei beside her, Toph turned to him and asked in a somewhat anxious tone. What should I say to my dad? I don't want him to blame Madara, he did nothing wrong and he even went there to save me. Lei gave her a wry smile. Little miss, I'm afraid that they already blame him, there's not much that you can say to help his situation right now. She lowered her head feeling guilt, but, it's not fair, is there really nothing that I can do to help him? Lei felt conflicted. In one hand he could give her some ideas to help Madara's situation, on the other hand he would be betraying the trust of Master Beifong. It was a very tough spot for him since he respected both men a lot, but when he looked at the depressed Toph he couldn't help it. Sigh, you can do a few things. Toph perked up. Tell me. Massaging his forehead and contemplating what he was about to do, he could only shake his head. Tell your father that you were lost in the streets of Gao Ling the whole time, that you discovered that you could earthbend but can't control it, so you got lost while exploring your skills. But, what if they go and ask about it? Lei shrugged. So what? Gao Ling is a massive city, there's kids everywhere and people wouldn't remember you even if you actually went there. On the other hand, they won't press you too hard because it's not like you can tell them where you were. He chuckled. He really was spending a bit too much time near Madara. I will back you up and tell your father that I spotted you while doing some chores for Mr. Uchiha in the city. Toph raised one of her eyebrows and a cunning smirk appeared on her cute face. Oh. The perks of being blind. She chuckled and gave Lei a gentle punch on the side of his thigh. You are a good person, Lei, thanks. He chuckled at her behavior and bowed respectfully, always willing to serve, young Miss Beifong. Chapter 20, Red Cloud. Lao Beifong was sitting in his office holding his face with both hands. If anyone could see his facial expression now, they would be able to see his worry and guilt. 3 days ago, his daughter showed up intact, clean, and proper, guided by Lei, who said he spotted her running around Gao Ling, lost and trying to find her way home. Toph also claimed that she discovered her earthbending and tried it without knowing what it was. He sent his guards to search for proof of their claim, but it was impossible to confirm or deny it, as there are many children that run around Gao Ling every day. It would be impossible for him to know the truth, but the key point is that she came home clean, without any serious bruises. Perhaps there were some here and there, but nothing serious by any means, which made him believe their words. The problem is that 8 hours later, Madara showed up being carried by a very well-developed young woman with an incredibly nasty vocabulary, who ignored everyone on her way and went straight to the guest house while being guided by Lei. Just looking at his circumstances, Lao could see that Madara fought to the death against the Fire Nation for the sake of rescuing his daughter, a fight that he now believed was completely unnecessary since Toph was in Gao Ling all along. His people went to examine the area, and when he got the report he couldn't believe it. That young boy killed more Fire Nation soldiers in one night than the Earth Kingdom managed to kill in the past month. To make matters worse, he had promised his wife that Madara would be removed from his job and kicked out. A clause on their contract was that if he caused direct or indirect damage to the Beifong family, the contract would be terminated and consequences would be deliberated. His wife argued that Madara's behavior was in line with such clause. He fought through a battalion of soldiers just to rescue my daughter that wasn't even there, and even if she was. He paused and closed his eyes. And I was the one who sent him there, to begin with, and now I'm supposed to kick him out. To think that I would be forced to behave ungratefully by my own family. Shaking his head, he looked through the window, staring at the sunny day outside, and he's been out cold since he arrived. How am I supposed to do this? The level of loyalty that he displayed is not something that can just be bought with money. Taking a deep breath, he closed his eyes. I'm sorry. A few hours passed since he decided to play statue on his comfy sofa chair, when a sudden knock on the door woke him up from his thoughts. Yes. Sir, this is the head maid Nari, Mr. Uchiha has awakened. Said a mature female voice from behind the door. Lao stood up at lightning speed, making his expensive chair fall to the ground, though he didn't care as he hurriedly walked out towards the guest house. Madara slowly opened his eyes to stare at a fancy familiar ceiling while a gentle breeze moved the yellow-colored curtains near the window in and out of his field of view. Ugh was the only sound he could make. To put it simply, he was feeling like shit. He finally decided to wake up. Princess, a soft chuckle was heard and he moved his gaze to the side. Did you have a good nap? Kalia grinned while eating some sliced fruits near the bed. Cough, weren't those fruits supposed to be for me? He could only ask with a wry smile. Oh, is that so? I didn't know that. She said while placing the last slice inside her mouth and chewing it. They taste great though, totally recommend you trying it. He chuckled, glad that you enjoyed it. A comfortable silence was maintained for a few minutes until a knock came from the door. Miss Kalia, Mr. Beifong is here to see Mr. Uchiha. The head maid's voice echoed. Kalia turned to Madara and said, can you believe that? I'm Miss Kalia now. She chuckled, and he followed suit. The door was opened and revealed Lao Beifong beside a beautiful woman wearing fancy gray and green long robes. She had shoulder-length light brown hair with almost yellow-colored eyes. Madara looked at Lao for a few seconds before sighing, Mr. Beifong, I. But Lao interrupted him by raising one hand as he took a step closer. Don't say anything, Mr. Uchiha. Toph already told me that she was never in the foggy swamp. She was in Gaoling the whole time, lost on the streets, and Lei found her and brought her back. I'm sorry for giving you the wrong information. I also didn't know. Madara was very confused right now, but when he looked at the maid, she smiled at him and winked with one of her pretty yellow eyes. Oh. What a cunning little Jackie, heh. I like it. Sighing, Madara asked, so, what now, Mr. Beifong? Lao kept staring at Madara in silence for a bit before turning to the two women. Care to leave us alone for a bit? Kalia shrugged and stood up, walking towards Nari, who chuckled, all right, I'm going out. Come Nari, tell me more embarrassing stories about Jackie. I'm curious about what happened after he fell in that hole. After both women left the room, silence prevailed. After mustering his courage, Lao said, you don't have to worry about anything, you can stay and recover as long as you need. Madara chuckled, is that a Beifong way to say that I will be kicked out once I'm better? Lao lowered his head in shame, I'm sorry, Madara. I can't keep you around my daughter anymore. My family. Closing his eyes, Madara just sighed. It was nice to work for you, Mr. Beifong. Lao couldn't say anything else. He was very ashamed of his behavior right now, so he just nodded and walked out. Looking at his own body, Madara noticed he was covered in bandages, especially around his torso, though he didn't look like a mummy since he didn't have any broken bones, just some cracked ribs. Still. What a shameful sight for the mighty Uchiha Madara. Deciding to go back to his rest, he drank some water and closed his eyes for a few hours until a maid brought in his meal. 2 weeks passed as Madara was recovering. He came to terms with the fact that he would be kicked out of the Beifong estate eventually, although he was pissed that there was nothing that could actually be done. Toph would have run away with or without his existence, but that didn't matter. His presence created a catalyst for it to happen. He was to blame and he knew it. Water that slapped the man's hand, sending it backward and stopping his bending instantly. Hitting his opponent with a knee on the chin, Lei grabbed him by his collar as his head bent backward, and once the sandbender recovered and leaned his head forward, Lei slammed his forehead against the sandbender's, knocking him out instantly. Kalia kept her opponent from moving freely, but she was very limited to the small amount of water that she carried inside her little canteen. With no big moves available to her, she tried to go for precise strikes. She dodged wave after wave of sand, jumping and rolling around, doing a circular movement with her arms. The water rotated around her and formed a ring shape. Lei took advantage of the last opponent's attention focused on Kalia and went behind him, hitting his back with a loud kick that sent the sandbender stumbling forwards. Noticing her chance, Kalia shouted while crouching low enough to be below the water ring's height. Jackie, duck! She froze the ring of water and sent it forward while spinning it like a frost saw blade. Lei went down as the ice ring went past him inches above his head, and when he looked up, he saw the last sandbender split in half. Phew! This was an interesting exercise, said Lei while panting a bit. Ye did good there, Jackie. Never knew ye head was so hard that ye could knock someone out, she said while chuckling and sitting down to rest. My head, just like any of my limbs, is a deadly weapon, said Lei while puffing his chest out in pride. Yeah, either that or ye brain is so small that your head has to be twice as thick to compensate for the empty space. She laughed. Getting triggered, Lei snapped, you fucking bitch, come and try me. I'm gonna kick your ass. He took pride in his intelligence. She went too fucking far. She just ignored him and went to grab something to drink. Lei calmed down. He knew it was just some teasing, but then he asked, was that really necessary? I mean to split that man in half. It's a very nasty sight. He had to avoid looking at it and he was fighting to not throw up right now. In a battle, we don't always have the privilege of choice, sometimes we do what we gotta do to finish it fast, said Kalia while pouring some soju for herself. Want some, she offered. Contemplating for a bit, Lei nodded. He really needed a drink right now. Both of them were drinking in a comfortable silence until they heard some footsteps. Looking towards the source of the sound, they spotted Madara walking towards them with his hands behind his back and a very serene expression. It seems you guys enjoyed quite a party while I wasn't around. He chuckled looking around. Well, these fuckers are all over this goddamn desert. They spotted us a while ago and tried to ambush us. Luckily he sent Jackie back here 6 days ago. This ain't the first wave of sandbenders we had to take down, boss. Any survivors? Asked Madara. Yes, Mr. Uchiha, but it's not relevant. They say nothing. We tried every trick that you taught us and they just didn't say anything. Said Lei a bit frustrated. Just shrugging, Madara walked towards the airship. Alright, I'm going in, and since they don't talk, finish them off. We don't want our tracks to be exposed more than they already are. Aye, said Kalia while finishing her drink. When Madara leisurely walked inside, Lei turned to Kalia and asked. Is it just me or does Mr. Uchiha seem different? He looks and behaves in a more calm and serene way than before. Kalia just smiled. She noticed it too and she was legitimately happy for her boss. It seems he found some answers that were plaguing him for a while. She stared at the airship entrance for several seconds before slapping the back of Lei's head. Alright Jackie, let's go back to work and leave this damn canyon. Lei stumbled forward and looked back with a hateful expression. What the fuck was that all about? Why are you slapping my head, you damn brute? Did it hurt? Of course it did, you barbarian woman. I thought your head was so strong that it could rival your limbs in battle. Well, it seems like a false advertisement to me. She shrugged and moved towards the corpses and passed out sandbenders to finish her job. Lei could just move his mouth, trying to formulate a snarky comeback but failing. Hey! If you are done trying to figure out some snarky one-liner, get your ass here and help me out. Aye. Chapter 25, Wan Shi Tong. The airship soared through the sky once more, flying through the desert for days, searching for a lonely tower in the middle of the sand. Easy, right? During the trip, Madara kept writing many different books about many subjects he learned from his previous world that he thought would also apply to this world, and one was the basics of chemistry, another was the basics of physics and math, a third one was a book that he wrote that contained information about all languages available in both human and spirit world. It took him a little over 2 weeks to finish his job, and his first works didn't have much in-depth information because he dropped out of school very early on, but he believed that his knowledge would still be valid. The language book was what he was counting on to get on Wan Shi Tong's good side, but he wrote another one that he hoped he wouldn't need to give. But regardless of that, he wrote it. It's always better to be prepared. After a month of not finding anything, Kalia finally spotted the supposed tower with her spyglass, and Lei, being the good housewife he was, turned and flew towards it. Jackie, this time only me and Kalia will go down. I will need you here to keep driving the airship. Madara had the memories of Appa being kidnapped when Team Avatar entered this place. He won't be risking it. As you wish, Mr. Uchiha. Where should I take it? Said Lei. Anywhere you prefer, a hidden location where the airship will be secure, but don't leave it there. Stay inside with the engine always on. We have more than enough fuel to keep this going for a long time. I want you to stay hidden until nightfall. Then you fly back here to scout the place. If we are out, I will light a fire so you can spot us. If you see nothing, fly back to the hideout. Avoid leaving the hideout during the day, we don't want you to be tracked. We'll do as commanded, Mr. Uchiha. You take care of yourself down there, said Lei. Madara nodded and walked towards the hatch with Kalia. It seems Jackie doesn't like me, said the woman pretending to be hurt. Not even wishing the best for me too. She concluded while chuckling. Lei decided to ignore her remark, but his eyebrow twitched in annoyance. Lower our altitude, Jackie, don't land. We will be jumping down. Jackie nodded and piloted the airship until it reached roughly 10 feet from the sand and gave the signal. Opening the hatch, Kalia and Madara just jumped. While falling, Kalia used her waterbending to create a whip of water and wrap around the hatch knob, landing gently on the ground. Madara, on the other hand, ignited flames from his feet and glided down without any issues. Waving his hand to the airship, Madara turned away and walked towards the tower with Kalia. Lei, who saw the sign, piloted the airship and left, disappearing on the horizon. Remember Kalia, when we meet the spirit inside you need to be gentle with them, they can have quite the temper. Also, you will be offering this to them, Wan Shirtong collects information, so we need to show proper respect. Said Madara while handing the physics and math book to her, keeping the chemistry for himself. Alright, you don't have to worry, we northern tribesmen are the most attuned to the spirits. Said Kalia. Oh, don't go counting on that, Tue and La are gentle spirits, our friend down there won't be like that. How did ye? Sigh, ye know what, I give up on trying figuring ye out. Madara chuckled, hee, well. Girls like mysterious guys, don't they? Raising one eyebrow, what the, ye alright boss? This is the first time I've ever heard ye talking about stuff like that. Madara stopped in his tracks and his eyes widened, oh. Fuck. He let out a massive sigh and started walking towards the tower again while massaging his forehead, great, I will have Tio endure fucking puberty all over again. Fuck you, voice. With their bendings and skills they had no issue in climbing to the entrance. Madara tied a rope so Kalia could go down safely. Meet you downstairs, he said before jumping excitedly into the darkness. Kalia sighed, damn this man, he seems more excited about the smallest thing since he came back from that town. She smiled, although. I prefer him this way, then she slowly climbed down with the aid of the rope. Landing several feet below, the duo walked through the dark and dusty tunnels. Madara ignited a torch with his firebending on their way, they came prepared after all. What do we have here? Humans. Said a rather soft-spoken voice, one would mistake the source of it for a gentleman if it wasn't for the creepy reverberation that came with it. Looking up the duo saw a massive black owl with a white face and big black eyes that stared at them with curiosity. You must be Wan Shirtong, the owner of this place, said Madara. Interesting. You know about me, but I don't know about you. Said the owl, which is incredibly strange. Considering that I feel a spirit when I look at you. Raising an eyebrow Madara replied, oh, you feel it. Good to know that other spirits can do that. He didn't mind, it's not like he was trying to keep it a secret after the whole swamp battle. Not only that. But your face. I haven't seen your face. Said the owl, staring curiously at Madara. We never met, so obviously you wouldn't know my face. Said Madara with a drop of sweat coming down his forehead, oh shit, I forgot to consider that detail, fuck. You are not wrong. But a face like yours, unseen, will attract quite a bit of trouble in the future, young HM. Avatar, asked the owl seriously confused. This time Kalia couldn't help but interfere, wait. Hold on for a minute, ye the fucking avatar, she yelled at Madara, who had to cover his ears due to how loud she was. No, I'm not the avatar, I have nothing to do with the avatar. He said while shaking his head. You speak correctly. You are not the avatar. But still. You feel like one. Is it because of the spirit inside you? Wait, ye have a spirit inside you. Why did no one ever tell me this? Kalia was literally losing it. Sighing, Kalia, we will talk about it after our introductions, it's rather rude to keep the owner of this place waiting when we are their guests. The owl's face tilted to the side, you are a weird human. Very humble. But at the same time, not humble at all. Shrugging, Madara replied, well, I believe a lot of people think that I'm weird at this point. If you have a problem with that, I'm afraid that you will have to join the queue, Mr. Wan Shirtong. The owl laughed, ha. You are indeed a very interesting human. Madara rolled his eyes, lost the count of how many times I've heard that. The owl was rather amused by Madara's casual behavior. So, you came here for knowledge, I presume. Madara nodded and sent a signal to Kalia. Both of them presented their basic knowledge books to Wan Shirtong. These are full of some knowledge about how the human world works, not about society or people, but about the world itself, among some other interesting stuff that can be found inside. The owl took the books and quickly saw through them. Most intriguing. These theories, these numbers. Not bad at all. Wan Shirtong, we are looking for some books and I hope that you can help us find them. Oh. What do you seek? For my companion here, I would like a complete collection of all bending styles, northern, southern, foggy swamp, and even blood bending. Kalia was shocked. Blood bending. Is that a thing? Madara nodded. It's a very difficult thing to learn, and the requirements are very high, but I believe it to be one of the strongest bending techniques in the world. The owl was also surprised, a lot. Wan Shirtong turned to Kalia and spoke. Follow the blinking green lanterns, it will take you there. Kalia nodded but didn't move. She was waiting for Madara. She wouldn't leave her boss alone with a weird and rather unpredictable spirit. You can go ahead, Kalia, I will be right behind you. You don't have to worry about me. Enjoy every second of it. There's no source of knowledge better than this place in this whole world. She nodded and followed his command, disappearing after crossing the passage. What about you? Combustion bending, chi breathing techniques, lightning bending and the best fighting styles, and if you can, energy bending. Wan Shirtong was in silence for a long while. You have some dangerous knowledge about this world. Energy bending is not meant to be known to humans. Madara said nothing. I take it you won't allow me to read about it then. The owl nodded. You are indeed correct. Sighing, Madara pulled one final book from his backpack. If you let me read all about energy bending, I will be giving you unique knowledge that no one else possesses, and it may be related to energy bending. There's no bargaining here, and Madara knew it. If Wan Shirtong willed, this whole place would disappear and they would never be able to learn anything. It's better to just make a simple deal with the spirit instead of angering it. The owl now was curious, very curious. They were tilting their head from one side to the other, trying to decide what to do in this situation. A unique knowledge, you say? A very unique knowledge, said Madara while grinning with conviction. If you manage to surprise me, I will accept. My only request is to never, never let this book exit your library. Do we have a deal? Very simple deal, yes. Madara tossed the book to the owl, who instantly scanned through it. Its eyes could only widen when he finished reading about it. I never heard of anything like this. Is it true? Yes, I am the living proof that it is true. The owl flapped its wings excitedly. Show me this so-called Sharingan. Madara willed and his eyes turned blood red, displaying their three tomos slowly spinning while staring at the owl's eyes. Magnificent.